Mic's on, please. This is an open meeting and it has been posted for Monday, February 9th, 6 p.m. Crosby, do roll call.
Jason.
Here.
Mike is virtual. Jake.
Here.
Jim.
Here.
Dale.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Carolyn.
Here.
Greg is virtual. Crosby is here.
All right, this is an open meeting and it has been posted. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, up first we have recognitions.
Thank you. Tonight we have two donations, wonderful donations. The first one that we'll acknowledge is from the Kiwanis Club. The Kiwanis Club has generously offered to purchase a Braille embosser for a 4K student with a visual impairment, providing a powerful tool to support her early learning. A Braille embosser is a specialized printer that produces raised Braille text on paper, allowing students who are blind or visually impaired to access written materials through touch. Having access to an embosser will enable the student to receive classroom materials, early literacy activities, and individualized instruction in Braille alongside her peers, fostering independence, building foundational reading skills, and supporting meaningful participation in her educational environment. This donation will cover the cost up to $4,000 for the district to purchase the device. We are extremely grateful to the Kiwanis for their support. The second donation this evening comes from Mara Perugini. We'd like to thank Mara for graciously donating $10,000 to the Mukwonago High School PAC to support the purchase of new lighting. This enhancement will play an important role in keeping the PAC relevant and up to date. And again, we're very grateful to Mara for her donation. And we will send thank yous and acknowledgments after the meeting.
All right, up next we have Prairie View Elementary School. Val, could you turn the mics on for them, please? And ladies, don't be afraid to grab the mic and put it right next to your mouth so we can hear you.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, I am Valerie Voss, principal at Prairie View. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am joined tonight by Kelsey and Alyssa Werner, two sixth graders at Prairie View, who are here to tell you about some of the great things happening at Prairie View that we've done this year. And these two girls have been a part of many of these amazing things. So they were chosen to participate because of that.
Hold on one second. Any parents want to come up here and stand behind us and take pictures or video, feel free to come up here.
I thought you were telling me to do something. Got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Girls, go ahead. Just speak into the mic. Yep.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Werner, and I'm a sixth grade student at Prairie View Elementary. I'm proud to be a member of Student Advisory, Playground Pals, and Environmental Club. In Student Advisory, we get to take on a leadership role, help plan and promote school events, and be involved in making our school a better place. We also work together to give back and support the community around us. Playground Pals has also helped me understand my role as a leader and a role model for younger students at our school. We help students play games together and make sure no one feels left out or alone. Everyone deserves to feel safe and have fun at recess. One example of how Student Advisory helps the community is the Coins for Kids campaign, which is a fundraiser that helps provide Christmas gifts for kids whose families are in need. This year, we raised the largest amount of money yet. Every spring, Student Advisory members host STEAM Night, which allows students and families to explore science, engineering, and art projects. I have enjoyed being a leader at Prairie View, and I am very thankful for my clubs, advisories, and believing in me during my last year of elementary school. Thank you for listening and taking the interest in our fun things that Prairie View has to offer.
Dear Mukwonago School Board members and administrators, my name is Alyssa Werner. I am a sixth grader at Prairie View Elementary. I am an enthusiastic member of Student Advisory, Playground Pals, and Environmental Club. Prairie View offers many opportunities for students to get involved and share their passion. One of the clubs I am involved in is Environmental Club. Our goal is to recycle 1,000 pounds of single-use plastic so we can earn a fully recycled bench for our school. This helps keep plastic out of landfills, and we are already over halfway to our goal. Another exciting project is our hydroponic garden, which allows us to grow vegetables indoors all year long. It takes up less space and provides healthy greens for our school. No matter what your passion is, Prairie View has a group that helps you become a leader, have fun, and make new friends. I want to thank our advisors for their time this evening, and supporting students as we explore our interests and see ourselves as leaders. Thank you for your time this evening.
Good job.
Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions or comments? Last name is Werner. Are you related to Jill Werner? No? Okay. She was a
I like
former
the
board member.
leprechaun traps. Is that something that you guys just finished, or is that from last year?
That was from last year's student night.
Oh, those are super cute.
Awesome.
But that's what they're going to do this year at student night.
Yeah.
Great job, ladies. You do the
Great job.
district very proud.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have citizens' comments.
All right, for citizens' comments, welcome to everybody that has come. We appreciate having everybody here. Every speaker is going to have 3 minutes to make his or her comments. Citizens who wish to address the board must come to the table, speak clearly into the microphone, and remain seated if physically able during the duration of your comments. We will signal you when you're at 2.5 minutes to mark at the 2.5 minute mark to begin the wrap up of your comments. We expect all speakers to honor the time limit, refrain from using inappropriate language, and be respectful in their comments. Citizens who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board committee meetings. Speakers are to address the board, not the audience. The school board does not endorse any comments made by members of the community here tonight. We'd like to remind the community members of the impact of their words on others. Our children are watching. We commit to listening to you in a respectful manner, and we ask that you do the same. We expect the audience will be respectful of the speakers and the board and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or behavior that would distract from the meeting. If proper decorum is not adhered to, the board president can suspend citizens' comments. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience. Visual aids cannot be used, and the area behind the speaker must remain clear during the public comment. Also, to respect our speakers and meeting participants, please silence your cell phones. First up, we have Stacy Markowitz.
No honey, Stacy. I buy my honey from her, in case people are wondering why I'm saying no honey. I thought she was going to bring something tonight.
I know, I didn't have a chance. It's actually boxed up from the Honey Expo that was this past weekend. Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to Dale for meeting with a group of parents today. During that meeting, I provided Dale actually a copy of a document that I'm going to read. It's a list of questions for the board, and I have a copy for all of you, but an email has been sent of a PDF of all of this. But for many of the discussions and the Facebook posts I've seen, and even from today's meeting, our community is searching for clear information. We want to understand the problem regarding, the whole band and orchestra issue so that we can collaborate on the solution. I believe this list of questions will help us organize the data and provide answers necessary to uncover where opportunities lie to solve this problem outside of cutting the elementary and band and orchestra program. There are reasonable questions for anyone wanting a positive outcome based on a legitimate process. So I'll start with the list of questions. 1, what is the specific problem is this proposed curriculum change intended to solve, and how was that problem measured? 2, in recent slide decks Focus primarily on lesson pullouts. Is the concern limited to the lessons, or does it also include full group rehearsals? 3, what student outcome data indicated that the current music lesson model is underperforming or creating an academic harm? For example, were academic performance metrics such as elementary test scores or classroom performance compared between instrumental and non-instrumental students? Aside from declining long-term participation rates, what additional indicators were used to determine that a change in the program structure is necessary? 5, did the district analyze academic performance trends for students with the highest levels of sustained participation in instrumental music to understand whether duration of participation correlates with the academic performance? 6, the most recent presentation mentions elementary classroom remediation for instrumental music students. Has that remediation driven by demonstrated academic needs, or primarily by scheduling conflicts created by the lesson pullouts? 7,
At 2.5 minutes.
were families of instrumental music students surveyed specifically about whether they wanted scheduling alternatives rather than program structure changes? You can see here that we're looking for detailed data and information so that we can all collaborate. And like in today's meeting, we all want to come to a great solution that benefits everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Stacy. Carl.
Excuse me a moment, I need to
Well, you're fine.
No problem.
glasses that I can actually read a little closer. So thank you for the opportunity to read a statement from my daughter, Catherine Wilhelm. She's unable to be here because she, along with at least 4 other young adults representing our district, is rehearsing with the Milwaukee Youth Symphony Orchestra's Senior Symphony. From her. Good evening, board members and advisors. My name is Catherine Wilhelm, and I'm a senior at Mukwonago High School. Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for listening to my comments among those of my peers at the last meeting. I truly believe that citizens and student representation is the foundation of this board. I would like to continue to see each member recognize their importance. This recognition can come from willingly meeting with students and parents, or simply addressing emails or answering emails to show you that you are listening. As someone that is soon to be an adult, I would argue she's been one since she was 2, I would like the adults in this room to consistently recognize the voices of the students as valuable and listen with an openness to understand the many views they represent. I would also like to touch on something that I hope is not the direction of the conversation regarding the band and orchestra programs. Last meeting, there seemed to be a disconnect between the wants of citizens and the steering committee, as demonstrated by the number of citizens that showed concern with cutting elementary band and orchestra. The slides posted on the board website present an argument regarding a recent decline in participation. I would like to remind all those present that COVID was not that long ago. There are real numerical repercussions to the music department due to this. My class is by far the smallest the band program has seen for years due to the timing of instrumental introduction with the pandemic. Any arguments made with those numbers tonight must take COVID and its impact into consideration. Otherwise, they are arguments presented with only half the information, creating a bias, whether intentional or not. Lastly, regarding a decline in enrollment from 4th and 5th grade to 12th, this is a natural progression. It is witnessed in sports, advanced academics, and all forms of art. It is not realistic to assume the majority of those who start in elementary school must continue to high school for the program to be a success. As someone who has had the opportunity, all kids must choose. I wish I had time to finish playing varsity soccer, to play trumpet, and participate in every extracurricular activity I want to. That just isn't possible, so please don't hold fine arts to unfair expectations that other activities are not held to or judged by. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grace Stoll.
Hello, my name is Grace Stoll, and I am a junior here at Mukwonago High School. Tonight I will be speaking on behalf of Madeline Makarevich, who is participating in MISO alongside Catherine Wilhelm and many other band and orchestra students in our programs. After reviewing the agenda for today's meeting, I would like to address my thoughts on the points made and offer some suggestions on opportunities to solve the problems noted in the presentation. First, it has been made clear that expenditures are a significant reason for cutting elementary orchestra and band, staffing-wise and overall expenses. Would it be beneficial to consider more fundraising opportunities for the music department expenditures outside of the Field of Flags fundraiser done by the marching band? I am aware that running concessions is a well-established system of fundraising for the extracurricular groups and could be applied to the department as a whole. I believe it will be most beneficial to have a sit-down and brainstorm these ideas, and I would be more than willing to participate to be part of this planning for student perspective. Student interest and class retention was another reoccurring issue. For the data provided, I would like to acknowledge a key factor in student retention. As a high school student who chooses their own classes, I am aware how changes in teachers can cause uncertainty in students of how a class will be run, as well as logistical issues. The majority of elementary schools in the district have had 3 different elementary teachers in the past 5 or 6 years. For band, it would be more realistic to take data on the retention once a teacher has been present for a longer period of time. In regards to the lesson scheduling, I would once again like to emphasize how the current lesson schedule has run successfully thus far. Assuming this problem has stemmed from a parent complaint, I would recommend that parents work one-on-one with their teachers rather than changing the entire structure of the program. I am confident teachers are willing to find workarounds to ensure students are caught up in their other academics. I would like to make a point, however, that despite only 3% of our current senior class participating in the band and/or orchestra program, we have had 4 out of the 6 students of the months in the high school have been a part of these orchestra and band programs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Stoll.
Hi. Thank you for the time tonight to talk. I wanted to say that I would reviewed the presentation that was presented, and I just had some additional thoughts and questions that I'd like to present back. When reviewing the slides on the participation rates that were listed, a lot of the participation rates that were listed were of required courses. When you look at the participation rates and you look at when it was required versus when it was no longer required, you will see that the same drop-off happens. Maybe not to the extent that you see with the music program, but you do see it. World language, 10th grade, you have 58%, 11 is 26, 12th is 14. Most colleges require 2 years, so you're going to see that drop-off after 2 years. Math, 72% of seniors, so you've seen it go from 100% to 72 because it's no longer a required course, although most colleges require 4 years. So you see that it's not just the music program that's having that decline. There's more things that kids are having to share their time with. One of the things that I want everybody to be aware of and to think through as they're looking through this is entry-level music provides students with an opportunity to try all 3 options. They get a chance to try orchestra and band and choir. There's no other opportunity for them to try all of those. Once you get to middle school, you're required to choose one program out of all 3 of those. You have to make that choice. You don't have another option. Once you make that choice, you're kind of stuck into it. The kids that are currently taking elementary education for band and orchestra have come up with solutions on how to still maintain participating in multiple things. The kids are choosing to join orchestra, but then also join jazz band or Blue 2 or marching band to still maintain that level of participation and still be able to continue on with learning that music and that instrument. And then when they get into high school, they have the option of doing more. When we look at how many of the students that drop off when they go from elementary and on, how many of those students had to choose between band and orchestra and pick only one? So you have a drop off that happens between elementary and middle school, but those students had to choose between taking both and only taking one. So what a number of students is that had to make that choice? That is going to correlate into the amount of numbers that go from elementary to middle school, because you see the decline there. When I'm looking at the future staffing needs, I noticed that at the middle school level,
2 minutes and 30 seconds. Sorry.
you have a 2 staffing needs for orchestra and bands, and at the high school you only have 1.5. And I'm wondering if there could be a shared resource there. I know choir only takes 1.5, and their half resource is shared between the middle school. So I'd like you to just explore those different options. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, yep, thank you, sorry.
No good deed goes unpunished is a common phrase, and I believe it applies to this situation. This school district's administration and school board came to the public with a referendum request for financial support to build a new middle school. The taxpayers stepped up and supported this request, and as a result, the thank you from the administration is a request to the board to eliminate 4th and 5th grade band and orchestra. Had it been shared at the time of the referendum request that building a new middle school would result in cuts to important programs throughout our district, I can only assume the voting results may have been different. At the prior meeting, this proposal was made as a line item buried under the heading of middle school staffing. Nowhere was it called out on the prior agenda that there was going to be a proposal to eliminate elementary school programs. And if it hadn't been for small town rumor mills, community members wouldn't have even known to show up last month to address this topic. I was deeply disappointed to hear the proposal, which offered its only solution to an apparent staffing challenge as eliminating programs. No other possible solutions were even brought up as considerations. Since our district already offers band and orchestra for 4th, 5th, and 6th grades spread across numerous different elementary school buildings, it doesn't even make sense to me why having 6th graders now in a different building would affect staffing levels. The same teachers that travel to our various elementary schools would now spend less time at each of those buildings, since there would be one less grade level at them, but would add Parkview into their travel rotation. If that wasn't the right solution, I'm certain that at a minimum, if the administration cared to do so, they could come up with some different ways to adjust the programs to keep them. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the goal, as I stated, since not a single other potential solution was mentioned in last month's proposal. I and many others are well aware that other lower performing school districts, such as Waukesha, have cut their music programs in recent years, not to mention their library and gifted programs in addition. I would like to be abundantly clear in saying that I have no desire for our school district to follow in those footsteps and decline to the level of other schools, and I firmly believe the greater Mukwonago community echoes that sentiment. It is my sincere hope that this school board will think for themselves and remember that it is the board's role to do what is best for the school district and the students in it, not to just blindly follow anything an administration proposes. As an outside observer, it sadly appears these past few years that our board has become yes men to a heavy-handed administration by allowing things that to me defy logic. For example, public records show there was a $24,000 salary increase to one of our administrators received from one school year to the next. I was floored that our board would allow a 20% increase on what was already a 6-figure salary for someone, but yet here we sit discussing grade school music program cuts because we allegedly can't afford them.
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Personally, my children are well beyond grade school age. I came here tonight simply because I care about this community and the children we are raising in it. I ask nothing more than for our board to refuse to cut these programs and insist that the administration find some other solutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brett Forster.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. I'm here to talk also about the elementary band and orchestra program. I am a 1995 graduate of Mukwonago School District. I have 3 children, 3 sons who are 2021, 23, and 25 graduates, of which my youngest and my oldest were both involved in the music program. My youngest, who just graduated this last year, was involved in the marching band program all the way from COVID, which is the only marching band program that actually did anything during the COVID year in the entire southeastern Wisconsin, all the way up until this last year. Now we're talking about possibly eliminating elementary school music. We already have a small marching band program that I still volunteer with. 3 years ago, 2023, our program was very close to taking the state championships in marching band. As a matter of fact, Greendale's director, Oak Creek's director, whom I knew are two of the most successful marching bands in the state of Wisconsin, called up our director to say, you guys should have taken the state championship. Now, why haven't we? It's because of our numbers. Our group is small. You've seen them at football games. They're a small group. Why are they a small group? Because we keep losing kids throughout the years. Why are we losing kids throughout the years? Is it a part that we put so much emphasis in this school district about going to college that we insist the kids take AP courses which interfere with those classes, that interfere with the opportunity to be in band or orchestra? I think it is. Now, granted, we're talking 30 years ago, but 30 years ago, if someone wanted to, say, go into the trades or go into manufacturing and not go to college, they were told by their guidance counselors, oh no, you need to go to college. I had a friend of my brother who, when he met with his high school guidance counselor in his senior year, he said, I'm going to become an electrician. His guidance counselor said, oh, you need to go to engineering school, become an electrical engineer. So are we pushing kids now to go to AP classes because we're constantly pushing them to go to college, which means that then they can't participate in some of these other classes, such as band, orchestra? Is this why we're losing the numbers? Are we asking ourselves these questions? Another thing I'd like to ask also, or talk about, is that I have spoken to several former staff members of this district, both teachers and regular staff. Why is it that we, or this school district, will discipline a teacher for talking about anything that is going on in the district? These teachers have been told if they talk about these things, they could be fired. Is that right? I don't think so. To let somebody know, to be a whistleblower, they're told that they're going to get fired? That's a problem. And I hope that you all see that that's a problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ella Werner.
Sorry, my phone does not use my face. Hello, good evening. My name is Ella Warner, and I am a sophomore and a member of the band program at the high school. Music has always been a constant in my life, whether I'm listening to it while I do my homework or if I'm making the music myself. I truly believe that so much exposure to music has made me a more well-rounded and cultured person. I also believe that it is a huge mistake to decimate the orchestra and band programs in elementary schools. By taking away orchestra and band in elementary schools, that could be taking away a student's safe place. In order to have a successful learning environment, students need to feel safe, and having a staff member that they feel comfortable talking to is an essential part of learning. For some kids, their trusted adult could be their band and orchestra teachers. By removing the program, these kids may end up having no one else to go to if they find themselves in uncomfortable situations, or even if they just need someone to talk to. Additionally, in my AP Psychology class, we learned about this before semester exams. We had a developmental unit. And my teacher, Mrs. Amy Groyle, taught our class about Rosenzweig's experiment. This is an experiment about brain development using rats. And I'm not comparing students to rats for the record, but I'm just using this as an example. So this experiment put a rat in an impoverished environment, meaning it grew up all by itself with no rat friends and no rat toys. The other rats were put together and they had a tree branch and rat toys and rat friends. The impoverished rat brain cell was significantly less developed than the enriched rat, and the enriched rats developed thicker brain cortices than the impoverished rats. The point I'm trying to make is that by taking away band and orchestra from elementary school students could slow their brain development and make them less well-rounded people as they grow up. Elementary school is a critical period for brain development, and it will define the rest of their lives based off of how they are treated by their peers and teachers alike. Music makes people more accepting of others and therefore makes the world a better place in the long term. So I implore you, keep kids exposed to the music that they want to participate in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marlena Warner.
Good evening. My name is Marlena Warner, and I go to Prairie View Elementary. I am in 6th grade, and I have been in band for 2 years and just joined orchestra on piano this year. I respectfully think that you are making a big mistake in cutting band and orchestra in elementary schools. It is important for you to realize that you are changing students' lives with this decision. As people get older, they are less likely to want to try new things such as band and orchestra. This means if you cut it in elementary schools, you may lose lots of band and orchestra students in our district, which makes our district less appealing. 2 of my friends said that music makes them smarter in math. Many of my friends feel very strongly about making sure music stays in all schools. When I told one friend, she had some choice words to say about that. I care greatly about band and orchestra in elementary schools, even though I won't be there, because I looked forward so much to band and orchestra when I was little, and all my family was in band. Let me tell you, it lived up to my expectations, and then some. If it was cut then, I would have been so disappointed I might have asked my parents to move districts. I'm sure I wouldn't have been the only one to move districts or not decide to go here in the first place. Also, in band and orchestra, you get to make friends with people in different classes who you don't get to see very often. In middle school, you get to meet new people entirely who you may not have seen before. This brings more joy and happiness to kids. I also heard that it was a concern that it would be pulling us out of our classes, and I'd like to say that it would only be 20 minutes out because whole group sessions are during times where the teacher is not directly talking. I have also heard that you are considering to make marching band required. This is not a good decision, as it would make our marching band weaker. More doesn't always mean better, as I have been taught by one of the many wonderful teachers in our district. Although there would be more people, they may not enjoy it, which will come out in their playing. Thank you for letting me talk about what I believe, and I hope you don't make any reductions or cuts in music or change our already perfect marching band. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Josh Warner.
I feel like there's a lot of Warners talking tonight. It's not a conspiracy, I swear. Good evening. My name is Josh Warner, and I am a resident here in Mukwonago and former band teacher in the school district of Mukwonago. I taught here for 8 years. And I am talking tonight also about the music reductions, the potential music reductions in elementary. It's been mentioned a couple of times already this evening that the presentation that you are all about to see states that pull-out lessons harm academics because students miss instruction and teachers must reteach content. That is a serious claim, but no MASD academic data was shown to support it. We were not shown evidence that students in band or orchestra perform worse academically. We did not see achievement gaps, growth data, or intervention rates. Without local evidence, this claim is an assumption, not a fact. Scheduling challenges are real, but a scheduling challenge is not the same thing as academic harm. Across the country, districts successfully manage pull-out instruction without negative academic impact. If Mukwonago Schools believes our district is different, the burden should be on the district to show that evidence before eliminating programs that matter deeply to students and the community. Second, the access is not optional, it is a foundation. The district's own data shows that only 16 to 18% of students who begin band or orchestra continue through 12th grade. That tells us something important. The pipeline is fragile. But removing orchestra in 5th grade and removing orchestra in 4th grade and band in 5th grade does not strengthen that pipeline, it weakens it. Research consistently shows that earlier and sustained music instruction is linked to stronger executive function skills, including attention, working memory, and self-regulation, which are critical for learning across subjects. A recent meta-analysis found positive effects of music training on children's executive function, especially when instruction begins early and is sustained over time. When students are exposed earlier, they have time to build confidence, identity, and a sense of belonging before middle school pressures begin. When access is delayed, fewer students ever start and fewer stay. This is not just about music, it's about who gets access, when they get it, and how long they're allowed to explore something that could shape their confidence and connection to school. Once sixth grade moves to the middle school, eliminating elementary band or orchestra sends a clear message. Access
2
comes
minutes,
later,
30 seconds.
if at all. And historically, when access is delayed, participation drops, especially for students without outside resources. My ask is urgent and simple. Before removing early band and orchestra, please require decisions to be grounded in actual student outcome data, not assumptions, and in what we know about child development and persistence. Once these programs are cut, rebuilding them will be far harder than protecting them now. Please choose access. Please choose evidence. Please choose what is best for students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jolene Palatino.
Hello, I'm Jolene Palatino. I'm a member of the community, and I'm sorry I don't really have a nice speech prepared. I kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I'm 71 years old, and I haven't fallen off the turnip truck. So just a few things that I want to say. I looked over everything online today, and I was looking at the data, and it was interesting that it didn't look like you had planned for any new students coming into the band and orchestra program. Everything was kind of holding steady. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, boy, we're getting new subdivisions, we're getting new apartments, and aren't any of those kids coming in there going to play an instrument? And I also was thinking about way back when, because I'm 71 and I'm old. And I remember when Parkview had semester classes where you could take shop for a semester, and then you could take Spanish for a semester. You might take a different subject for a semester. That's all gone away. Now it's, and I know Parkview was always the place that was introducing you to other subjects, to kind of find yourself, to see what you were interested in. And I thought, what happened to that? Another thing, at Parkview, when my son went there, they had a class just for 7th graders coming into band, never having played before. What happened to that? I think if our district promoted band and orchestra as much as they promoted sports, we'd be doing really good. As for the marching band, how come the dance program, which is a sport, how come the dance program, why don't they have the dancers in the marching band?
2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Why aren't they the color guard? Why take kids off of their instrument to put them in color guard when you've got dancers in the school? I think that a lot of the kids, you polled over 500 parents to see if music was really important. That's not even half of the parents at one elementary school. And you're going to take half the count of parents at one elementary school to decide this? That's just wrong.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Molly Fredericks.
Hello and good evening. My name is Molly Fredericks and I'm a 6th grade student at Clarendon Elementary. I'm currently enrolled in band, orchestra, and choir, and I'm here to persuade you to keep these programs in elementary school. For starters, there are a lot of aspiring musicians in elementary schools, and it is very often that they don't have musical education to pursue what they love, and sometimes their schedule is a little too packed for their passion. That's why we need to step up and give them preparation for their future career as a musician. Second, music is the sole reason some people go to school. Some students use music as motivation to get themselves through the day. Something as simple as music has more power and wonder than words. Another reason music and performing arts is important in students' lives is the positive effect on them. Studies have found that playing an instrument and learning music has an effect on organization, focus, and it also eases the mind. These statements prove how musical arts have a positive effect on growth and learning. A fourth reason musical education is essential in our schools is the teachers. Yes, the teachers have a positive effect on our day, and their positivity and patience with students eases stress and helps develop communication and makes a safe learning environment for students. My fifth and final reason is we need these classes in our elementary schools, is how many students you'd be affecting if they were removed. More than half of the students in my class alone, if not all, are enrolled in one of these music programs. This is proof enough that music has an impact on all of our lives. In summary, I really hope you consider keeping musical education in elementary schools when you come to your final decision. Thank you for listening, and decide what is best. It was in our best interest wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done, young lady.
And that is our last comment.
All right, thank you. Moving on to presentations.
So thank you. There was a question that Mr. Schwartz brought forward regarding the use of student signatures in the school. So tonight we're just coming forward and we're talking about where and how student signatures are used, what students would sign on themselves, what the legal parameters are. Just have a few slides, an opportunity to take questions if needed from the board. So, just waiting for this to load. Okay. So what do students sign? We do ask students occasionally to sign documents in the school district. These aren't legally binding documents, but these are more acknowledgement type documents. So you can see that students would sign documents related to student conduct and safety. So for instance, students would sign on to the student handbook. Students would sign on to the athletic handbook. Expectations associated with courses. So students and parents would sign a syllabus related to a course. Field trips, codes of conduct for field trips, and then again, extracurricular activities. Students are also required on written statements, generally in speaking of disciplinary conduct. If a student is going to make a statement, we do ask the student sign the statement. Because these are potential policy violations, it's important to note that it is a school policy violation that these are connected to. There are several reasons that we do this. First, with regard to documents related to student conduct and safety, student signatures provide proof that a student was given notice of such expectations. This practice assists in protecting the school district from liability in the event of a claim that the district did not properly inform students of important safety information or other district requirements. The practice also serves as a deterrent to student misconduct and a valuable lesson to students that are accountable in the school setting for honoring their word. With regard to written student statements in the course of an investigation, student signatures serve the vital purpose of authenticating the statements. And again, the practice reiterates to students that their integrity of words and representations matter. The board has asked questions in the past about, like if what happens if false claims come up? Well, if a student makes the claim and signs it, they've stood by what their claim is, and then that is something that we follow up on students if they've made a false claim. Legal considerations. It's important to note that minor students do not have the ability to legally bind themselves or others with their signatures. Therefore, minor students will not be legally obligated by any document they sign, nor are minor students permitted to sign official school records, such as enrollment documents, permission or consent forms, or legal waivers and releases. So we still seek parent or guardian consent on anything that is legal. And then the recommendations going forward, there's a lot of value in this, and we're recommending that we maintain the practice of having students sign the documents and the types of documents that were mentioned in this presentation. Any questions?
Any questions?
So I brought this forward as I've been through some different things in the past here. I feel as if a student is signing something that the parent needs eyes on it, and they ought to sign it too. And there's documents out there in this district that aren't getting signed by both. So if one signs, then the other one ought to be either there witnessing them signing it and signing it themselves, or they should be signing it together at home.
Any other questions, comments? Carolyn? No.
I think it's a good point. I don't have any other. I read through this without the context of your why, but I think that's a good point, so that's all I have to say.
So from a logistical perspective, just having worked in a high school and being around athletic documents that both parents and kids have to sign, there's some logistical concerns that I guess I would have with requiring that to occur all the time. I think in certain cases, I think it's good to have a student, stick to their word. That's something that we need to teach kids, right? And I'm just thinking of, like, from a logistical perspective, that could be potentially difficult. Now, if we're talking about, a statement or things like that, then sure, yes, we should probably have a parent involved. But just to make a blanket statement that everything a student signs should be witnessed by a parent, I see your point, but I don't know that it's always necessary.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to finance and facilities. I just want to go back. Going on to that last presentation, is there anything specific you want to put forward for the next board meeting to discuss? Like anything specific?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Consent agenda.
Oh, consent agenda, I'm sorry. Looking for the approval of the school board meeting minutes of January 19th, 2026. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, that's approved by consent. Tom, finance and facilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will take us through a 5-year budget projection. This is something that we do essentially in February of each year. So I'll take us through where I believe we are headed in the coming year and where we'll be, the years that follow. So declining enrollment at times, it's a trend for it comes, it goes at times. Sometimes there's economic reasons for why a district may have declining enrollment. Maybe, as we've talked many times in this room here, interest rates are high. People might have low mortgage rates and they're not willing to cash in or move away from their 3.75% interest rate. In the past, we've had a number of families that move in each and every year at each and every grade level, and that current trend that we have historically understood and realized is slowing down at the current time for some economic reasons here. So when we define and we develop our budget, it's highly driven by a 3-year FTE or full-time equivalent average of student headcounts. And what I'm showing on this screen here are 11 school districts in Waukesha County. They had their fall 2024 to fall 2025 change in their 3-year average. So Those in red that are negative are districts that have had declining enrollment here in the most recent third Friday snapshot. And there's 3 districts, Elmbrook, Hamilton, and New Berlin, that have had positive growth in their 3-year average. Not particularly large growth, but growth nonetheless here. So I share this as we talk about our story and our budget and where we're headed. I want to provide some context that we aren't alone. We have some declining enrollments. We've had times in the past where we've grown recently, and we find ourselves in a rate of decline at the moment here. So just want to share where other districts are at again, and to show that we're not alone in this one. As a feature of Wisconsin school finance and school funding is that there is a declining enrollment exemption. So when your 3-year average from one year to the next goes down, schools and school districts generally need some time to right size. It's hard to start the 25-26 school year to find out we are down 134 FTE. So when your school financial picture is finalized, you're already 2 months into the school year. So a feature of school finance at school funding is a declining enrollment exemption. So here on the screen you see districts that experience the declining enrollment exemption, and it's a way to say you are in a declining enrollment pattern at this time based on your 3-year average last year to this year. So here's the amount of funding that we will provide to you this year. You shouldn't have gotten it this year based on your 3-year average, but we are going to give you time. We're going to give you 1 year of a heads up that this is where you are at. So as you look here, we had just over $1 million declining enrollment exemption. So in an approximately $65 to $70 million operating budget, this is funding we were provided here this year in 25-26. That as we look ahead to 26-27, we have to understand that $1 million of funding we were given is set to expire, all things being neutral. Muskego's in the same boat, Kettle Moraine a little bit more than us. You can see other school districts and where they are at this time. So to put some historical context here, going back to the 2015-16 school year and the 10 years to follow, you can see that all those zeros, those are years where we had increasing enrollment. Okay, there was no declining enrollment exemption. We had some smaller values which are easier to navigate there in 2020 and 2021 and 22 and 22, 23. But our 3-year declining enrollment average is starting to show based on the trends that we've had recently. So I'm showing this just to show the school board as we build the 26-27 budget where we are, okay? Again, to show other districts, we are not alone in this. Our neighbors to the east are similar. Kettle Moraine, our neighbors to the north, they've had it a little bit differently than we have. They've had a lot of declining enrollment here, and that forces some choices that the school board has to make. Oconomowoc, similar. New Berlin, they've had some declining enrollment exemptions in the past. Recently, no, but they have had theirs as well. So if I add each school district's amount, over that 10 or 11-year window there, it kind of shows you how declining enrollment has hit school districts in Waukesha County and to what extent. So ours not as much. I'm choosing some of our neighbors here in the southern Waukesha County area for comparison purposes here, okay? So just in summary of the declining enrollment exemption, again, it's a warning to school districts to right-size their budgets. So failure to do that means you're going to adopt a budget that has a deficit. And if you do this in a prolonged period of time, you're going to have financial problems, right? I think it's important that adopting a balanced budget is a goal of the board. Some years like this one, we adopted a budget with a deficit with a very particular school safety purchase in mind. I'll talk about that more in the coming slides. But declining enrollment is affecting most Waukesha County school districts at this time. Do I think there will be an end to this? I do. The time will tell. All right. So I'm going to look back at the 4 school years that you see on this screen, and this is really just a summary, and I'm going to put a particular emphasis on the surplus or deficit line. So Fund 10, everything that we code, and school board members, I know you've heard this a million times from me, especially for those of you that have been here for a while. Fund 10 is our general fund. That's where the vast majority of all of our expenses and revenues occur. We do have other funds, but generally speaking, we focus on Fund 10, AKA the general fund. And in each of these years, we take a look at the revenues that we got, the expenditures that we had, and then ultimately, was there a surplus or a deficit for that particular fiscal year? 3 of the 4 years here that you see on the screen, there was a surplus. We had a deficit in 22-23. School board members, again, we make decisions in June or July at the very end of the fiscal year. Sometimes we transfer money out of Fund 10 and we set it aside in Fund 46 to pay for future building needs we know are going to occur, and that's what occurred there in the 22-23 school year. So in summation, the surplus that we have on the screen was just over $5 million. If we pay attention here, I got to move this out the way, pardon me, the fund balance percentage. So the fund balance, again, is a snapshot on June 30th of a given year of how much money do you have in the bank at that time. Our cash flow positions move significantly throughout the year, and as you know, we bottom out in the month of November. Some school districts are negative at that point, and they have to cash flow borrow from their local bank. Fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, here, this very last number there, is a source of your district's economic health. When we went from a AA bond rating to a AA plus, those outside people who did that bond rating, Standard & Poor's, said Mukwonago has a good fund balance rating. They're building responsible budgets. They set money aside for when problems come up. We can certainly set money aside from budget year to budget year. Could we ever set aside enough money to save up to build a new middle school? No, we can never save that much money to make that happen. So there are times where we ask for additional funds. But generally speaking, from operating budget to operating budget, we try to build a balanced budget and at least have a small surplus and not a negative one. Moving on to the next 3 years here. So the leftmost year, 24-25, was the most recently completed fiscal year. The blue column is the current year that we are in, and then we have looking ahead to 26-27. Again, at the end of the 24-25 school year this past July, we transferred $3.5 million to set aside for projects we knew were coming due. So we moved that money out of Fund 10. We put that money into Fund 46. I believe about $1.6 million was used to pay for the new roof at Clarendon. Another significant investment was for another new roof section at Mukwonago High School. So we are using our operating budget again to pay for major building needs here, but that is why we have a negative number. Had we not made that fund balance transfer, then we would have had a more positive looking year for 24-25. In 25-26, you can see again we adopted a deficit budget. Again, this is going to the one-time school safety purchase that we made back in September. For all those prior years, I showed where we saved money for surplus. I remember standing before you right here saying, I believe that when you have surplus set aside, using it for one-time purchases to enhance school safety is why that fund balance is there. And so we are using that money this year. But as we take a look at the 26-27 school year, you can see that we're projecting a $750,000 budget deficit. Again, as you take a look at the September membership, that's the third Friday count of full-time equivalent students. We have 4,325 students. Those are the students who live in our school district boundaries and attend public schools. That number does not include open enroll in and outs, but we are declining by 85 students from this year to next year, and that's assumption we adopted back in December, okay? We anticipate getting an additional $325 each year from the state biennial budget. We anticipate getting $742 of per pupil categorical aid. That amount is not going up, it's staying flat. And when those are the major things that drive school finance, headcount and funding from the state, okay? And with all the changes that we have, we see that we're anticipating we're gonna have a budget deficit. It's something that we can certainly manage, but it's there, right? It's certainly there. Looking ahead to the past the 26-27 to the 4 subsequent school years, you can see that our budget deficit grows from year to year. Now, what I I don't want to stand before you and say we have significant problems. This is what it would look like if we do nothing. If we say we have problems, but we won't change our operations, we won't take a look at all the decisions that we have to, take a look at as a school district here. So the 4-year budget, like why I say I put some weight on this, but not ultimate weight, because both of the first 2 years and the last 2 years are dependent upon those biennial budgets. Those budgets will be highly dependent on who's the governor, the state assembly, the state senate, who's on the joint finance committee. I have no idea who the governor is going to be for those 4 years. So it's what I would say is this is a degree of evidence based on some reasonable assumptions of school funding and school enrollment as where we're going. So I just use this as the time to say we should be wise about where we think we're headed based on the assumptions that we've made. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so again, this is just kind of brings the current school year, the next school year in 26-27, and what's to follow. So without right-sizing the budget or a substantial change to school funding, we are going to head towards some significant financial problems. So 1 year at a time, year by year, let's focus on what's in front of us and make the decisions that we have to make here based on your goals and building a budget. So just to review at this time, again, we're making a budget for next year, but we have to make some assumptions. We don't know these things, but we have to take a best guess. And we've made these agreements here. We've adopted some assumptions here. So I walked through in December, our third Friday count. Back in December, we just adopted a minus 85 full-time equivalent decrease in student counts. We know that the state biennial budget will provide another $325 on our per pupil revenue limit. We will stay flat at $742 of per pupil categorical aid, and we're anticipating that special education categorical aid funding will go up by 7%. A couple more assumptions that we did back in January. We revised our open enroll in counts and our open enroll out counts, and we used our second Friday in our second Friday in January counts, and we know how much money we pay or receive for students who open enroll in or students who open enroll out for regular education and special education. The last assumptions I used in the projections I just showed you, these are not assumptions you have adopted as a board yet, but we'll work on these over the coming months, is a salary increase of 2.63%. So public unions in Wisconsin can collectively bargain up to CPI as defined by the Department of Revenue. That number was announced last month at 2.63%. So for unions that are recognized as of July 1st in their fiscal year, which is how our teachers union is, they can bargain up to a 2.63% compensation increase, but can't bargain for more than that, okay? From a health insurance standpoint, we'll do a lot of conversation around health insurance over the coming meetings. We'll share some results from a survey here next week. Back in March, we'll give you a state of the union on the financial performance. And if there's any plan design changes, we'll adopt those, talk about those in March and adopt those in April. So these things haven't happened yet, but to deliver this information tonight, I had to start somewhere, I should say. And so this is where I landed, okay? So next steps is we need to adopt a budget goal. My recommendation to you is that we adopt a break-even budget for the upcoming school year. Of course, that goal is for you guys to discuss and act on here. To just help you see around the corner and what's coming up here as we move forward here through this spring, summer, and fall. Next month, we'll review our health plan financials. We'll consider plan design changes, and we'll also adopt a 10-year buildings and grounds capital plan. Later in the spring, we will adopt potential health plan design changes. We'll build the staffing plan that's driven by student enrollment and course selections. Rachel will talk about that later. In the summer months, we'll work to finalize employee compensation, review our annual tax levy, and then we'll adopt a preliminary budget that we share at the annual meeting and budget hearing. When we present that, our electors of the district can come and hear that and then vote up or down if they support that particular budget as we present it. In the fall, we'll finally, in the month of September, we'll know our third Friday counts. October 15th, we'll know our state aid amount, and that will be given to us at that time. We'll finalize our tax levy and adopt a final budget at the school board meeting in October. So step by step, here's where we are. The intent of this presentation right now is just to kind of let you see where we're going if declining enrollment continues and school funding doesn't change in a material fashion. Do you guys have any questions that I can answer for you? Jake?
Jake.
If you could go back a slide, the 10% increase, the 10% increase to health insurance, what are the drivers behind that
Sure.
assumption? And does that include the stop-loss insurance being repriced?
Yep, so back in December, I believe was the month I gave you some information. So, you know, we spent a lot of time in this room talking about the health plan that we provide. Our employees, we want to provide a plan that's valuable to them. So we try to make sure that we manage the amount of money that is deducted out of their paychecks every 2 weeks. Whatever that amount is, the district pays 88% of that over the course of a year, and the employee shares the other 12% of that. In addition to that, as employees consume health care, if they have doctor visits or procedures, whatever that might be, we pay attention to the co-pays that they have and what's their max out of pockets, right? Because we can certainly provide health care, but if it's really expensive to consume it, are we retaining our staff? How are we doing in all those regards here? The 24-25 school year, so what I would say is this, that two things can be said right now. Our plan is performing well. We use a lot of steerage to find the high-quality medical providers that we work with. Our clinic is actively referring for when our people need orthopedic surgeries, for example. We work directly with Orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin. We use that steerage as much as possible because they have great performance, high rates of quality, and they also show us what their prices are going to be, so there's no huge surprises on the back end. However, we can't have a direct contract for every type of medical service that our people consume. Premature babies, heart attacks, cancer cases. We had approximately 20 shock claimants, as they would be referred to, where there's claimants that have $50,000 or more of medical expenses in a given year. So in 24-25, as of June 30th, we thought this was a good year, but there's a 6-month run-out period that occurs. So while somebody may receive a medical service on June 20th, we may not see that claim was incurred until September or October. So there's a 6-month run-out period that follows June 30th. And as we work through the 24-25 run-out period, in December I said we had claims that came in much higher than we had anticipated. So that can change from year to year as a self-funded plan. What we aim for is to have 4 good years and 1 bad year in any 5-year window. And I believe that in 24-25 was that bad year. So that's why I put that 10% increase on there right now. But next month in March, Megan Zimmerman and Sarah Hamus, who help us with our plan design here in other regional school districts, Burlington and Muskego are 2 examples, will come by to talk about the financial performance of the plan and answer questions like you're asking, but that's a long answer to the question I believe you asked there.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's partially a correction.
Yes.
With it being a new program and not something that we would expect to see.
Yes.
Year over year on an ongoing basis.
I would say this too, and this is this is throughout the United States of America in every corner of the country. Whatever a knee replacement costs this year, it'll be 10% more next year and 10% the year after that, and medical inflation moves at its own drumbeat. It doesn't move with gas prices or housing prices or groceries, whatever it might be. It's expensive. I wish it would slow down. I don't have any secrets in that end, but we're doing everything we can.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you want the clicker here or do you want to stand up here? There you go.
So following up on Tom's presentation, as he showed, there's a lot of school districts that are in a similar pattern of declining enrollment, tied by that 2-year biennial budget, and the need then to look at possible strategic partnerships. And so the state of Wisconsin provides opportunities, and school districts have gotten creative with how can they continue to provide high levels of service while reducing what would be the local cost. And so I'm going to go through several slides tonight that just talks about what school districts are doing, what they're using, what we currently use in Mukwonago in some of these areas, and then kind of talk about what some potential next steps could be in this regard. So school districts use what's called a shared service contract. It's a 660301 agreement. And so it's a legal framework that allows school district to share staff and costs. There's some examples of this around like school psychologists, speech therapists, special education directors. Rural logistics, so Clark County, they share busing and co-curriculars. You can also partner with your local CISA for purchasing some services. What this looks like, administrative and special ed. Sometimes school districts share a business manager across 2 locations, curriculum directors, special education directors, and human resources. Listed some benefits there, but you know, when you're local to someone, there's opportunities to partner and obviously share the costs of administrative services. Similarly, with operational and support services, technology, IT, food service management, transportation, summer school consortiums. So some of them are northern and rural, but they're coming together like the Shiocton example there around summer school. Sorry. Contracted services and charter consortia. So the concept is that one school district provides a specialized program for multiple regional partners. We see this example in virtual schooling. You can buy in to host a district's virtual academy. Some school districts have partnered around at-risk programming, and that's the example from the Eau Claire McKinley Charter School, where neighboring school districts have a need for 1 or 2 students, but they share the cost of the overall program so that it's meaningful and much more cost efficient for each individual school district. Whole grade sharing. So districts remain separate, but they do educate specific grade levels at one location. So for instance, you might see a school district, like a K-8 school district, that has one area that has a more substantial population of kindergarten through 4th graders. And they have a building that was otherwise used for K-8. They would maintain their students in that K-4 setting, but there might be another neighboring school district that has a 5-8 population, but a lower, younger one, right? I mean, we see changes in birth rates, changes in people moving into communities, and those school districts would come together for what's called whole grade sharing, and they maintain individual local control, but they do partner in how they provide that educational service. And again, this is, small districts will generally take advantage of this. This is not something that like Mukwonago would necessarily be looking at. District consolidations, we've seen this locally with the Holy Hill area and the Herman Neosho Rubicon School District. But more and more school districts, and the state is starting to incentivize this, are looking at incentivizing consolidation. In the past, I want to say it's been the past 5 years, approximately 70% of the school districts in the state have passed an operational referendum. It is either a recurring referendum or a non-recurring referendum, and they have to continue going back to their community for support. Our state representatives have started to look at that and acknowledge that, and they are starting to propose increased funding for school districts to merge, to share some costs and create some efficiencies when one school district is low. So what do we currently do? We have a Connect consortium with the Muskego Norway School District. It's a 6603 agreement, and it focuses on students earning industrial certified credentials. Muskego Norway serves as the operator of that fiscal grant, and this allows both school districts to keep more of the state aid provided. We used CISA for a while. CISA had a higher overhead cost, so we're able to maintain more money in our local school districts. Transportation, we do partner for students who attend alternative schools, and then we do share costs for homeless students. So if a student is living in the Muskego Norway School District, but the Mukwonago schools are the home of origin, the school of origin, we share the cost to bring that student from Muskego Norway to Mukwonago and vice versa in many instances. We do contract for itinerant services, so the Elmbrook Consortium, we partner with them for hearing and audiology. We do work with Elmbrook because there's a cost neutral. So if the staff member cost, just for the ease of the dollars, $100,000, and 4 school districts partner for that, you pay based off of your usage, but you're not paying an administrative fee in that. We partner with CISA for vision, orientation, and mobility.
Joe, can you explain to everybody what CISA is?
CISA is thank you very much. There's 11, 12 CISAs in the state. It stands for Cooperative Education Service Agency. And they provide professional development for teachers, for administrators. They also provide shared services for special education, and this is how we benefit from them. We contract for interpreting services and then independent educational evaluation. So if a family disagrees with the evaluation of their child for special education, they can request an independent education evaluation, an IEE, and there's a process then that we partner with an outside provider to do those evaluations. And currently we do provide food service for the Norris School District and St. John's Lutheran Church and School. So these are some partnerships that we currently have. So key takeaways right now, that partnerships allow districts to reinvest savings into student programming. I gathered this information from the DPI, School Management Services, for official guidance. And what I'm asking, and I will come forward with this next week, is to establish a committee of 2 or 3 school board members to work with our administrative team to explore these options with neighboring school districts where opportunities might lie.
When do you need to know what board members?
We'll come forward next week for an action item, and then if that is something that the board is interested in pursuing, then thereafter, Mr. President, you can appoint, and we could move forward with the committee there.
Okay.
And then any questions?
Any questions?
So you had mentioned it was 70-something% of schools in the state have gone to an operational referendum. For those who don't know what that is, can you just explain what the difference is between that and the referendum that we just passed?
Sure. So we passed a facilities referendum. It's a designated referendum. Facilities referendums can be used for building a new school, like we're doing substantial referendum, or doing substantial construction in your district. Or if you have large capital maintenance needs, you can go for that facility, that capital referendum to help with the buildings. That money is designated to a specific project. So in our case, the referendum that was just passed was dedicated to constructing and renovating the current Parkview Middle School. So putting the addition on and doing renovations in the building, and to perform capital maintenance throughout the district. So if we have roofs that are up, parking lots that are up, boilers that need to be replaced, that money, that question was targeted for that. An operational referendum is money to help you keep your doors open and to continue to provide programs. Usually that is a set dollar amount. If you remember 2 years ago, the Milwaukee Public Schools passed a $250 million operating referendum. That is one of the largest that I've ever seen. That actually had ramifications for many school districts across the state, from revenue limit authority, or for state aid, for state aid. But then there are the operational ones that you see that will last 3 years. So a school district can pass a referendum to exceed the revenue limit by $1 million a year for 3 years, and that helps then with those operational costs. Generally a very popular thing in property-rich school districts, where the cost of land, a lot of times that happens in Lake Country. Northern Wisconsin is a perfect example, where they're living on operational referendum. It is becoming more and more used across the state, that you are relying on that generosity of your community every 3 or 5 years.
So just to follow up, historically, and maybe Tom, you can answer this too, once a district, which we're clearly not in that position, which is good, as you showed before, but once a district starts doing operational referendums, do they ever really get out of them, or is it just perpetual?
Unless there's a substantial change in state aid, or the district takes kind of one of those more extreme measures like consolidation, you then become in that pattern. It's very hard to get out. I mean, as Tom's numbers presented, you can see 1 million turns to 2 million, turns to 3 million, turns to 4. That gap continues to exist. A lot of school districts that go to operational referenda don't get enough. They still are doing cuts along the way. So programs go away, class sizes go up, and that's the pattern that you get into, and you live by it.
Yeah, I'll point, not to pick on, but I mean, it's understood what happened to our neighbors to the north at Kettle Moraine School District. I showed on an earlier slide that they've had the declining enrollment severely over the last several years. They've had to make some tough decisions there. not only did they have to make those tough decisions, but they also had to pursue operating referendums that I don't know if they were additional funding for 4 or 5 years, but when those 4 or 5 years of additional funding, you know, fall off, if those operational referendums aren't renewed and approved by the community, more tough decisions have to be made. I guess what I would share, and I didn't intend to talk about this here tonight, but if you look at the history of school funding in Wisconsin up until about 2009, there's the per pupil revenue limit amount. For us this year, it's $11,650. That's the least amount per student in the state. We're tied for last. We've been last for essentially 30 years. That amount is growing by $325 per year currently, but from 2009 through about 3 years ago, it used to be linked to CPI. So you knew, all right, if costs are going up by 3%, we know that revenues will go up by 3%. In 2009, that was severed, and we've had most years since then with a $0 increase. I said earlier, it's right-sizing a school district isn't necessarily real easy work, right? It's a lot of thought has to go into it, because if you have a class of 24 kids one year and that becomes a class of 22 kids, you still have the same overhead costs. You still are providing buses, you're turning the lights on. All those things are still there. So it's like, well, where do we right size? There's not an obvious answer as to where to go. So enter the operating referendum to say, from, you know, if you have that deficit like I showed, one way to solve that is to do an operating referendum. I'm not suggesting that. Is that an option for the school board? Yeah. Some districts do it and some don't.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I think, like, moving forward, I think it'd be a good idea for us to look at different options to keep us stable and strong. So
Thank you.
I think that'd be a good idea to do.
Make sure this is agendized then for next week.
Okay. Anybody object to that? Okay, thank you. Move on to Rolling Hills Roof.
Okay, so next month we're going to adopt our 10-year capital plan, and then what we're going to do in that plan, as we have in years past, is we'll identify here's the projects that are coming due. You know, we take a look at all those projects each and every year. We don't remove those projects, but when those, Andy's here, thanks Andy, he's going to help out here. If we know a roof is on the horizon, we know it's due, Andy and his staff will walk on that roof several times a year. If we think we can get more life out of the roof, we'll live with that roof for a little more time. But there comes a time when that roof is due. Thank you, Dr. Cook. And right now, we know that the roof at Rolling Hills is due. We've had some heavy rainfalls or snowfalls here where we can tell, okay, there's water trying to get in some cases, a little bit has. We don't want that to continue on. So we'll take that, and it's time to do this project. This has been on the radar. Andy has gone out and proactively gotten bids already. So Andy, thank you for doing that. We are going to adopt this plan next month, but as Andy books his summer and gets contractors involved, we'd like to move on this particular project sooner than later. It'd be my ask that we don't wait until March for this. Andy has his bids in. He's done his homework, and he'll talk about that. But we're looking for you guys to hopefully take action on this particular project tonight. Andy?
Yeah, so we had grid coverage on this with 5 companies coming back. We had a original budget in our 10-year capital plan of $1.3 million to do the roofs. And with that, you can see we came back with our base bid and the additives that I've added in there at $860,000. We put some contingency in there just because, you know, there's going to be something that pops up as we go. There's a very close first and second, and the highlighted Nation Roofing, I'm recommending to go with them because they have been our really premier company that's worked with our district since 2018. And they did some of the roofs at the high school section, part of Parkview, Clarendon, and now it would be Rolling Hills. Performance is a good company. We have not worked with them. The company that I use to research everything is Interstate Roofing Consultants, and as they stated, they are a good company. We may see more change orders out of that company, where Nations has been very much, they stay to their budget for the most part. So being that we are so close, I would be recommending that we'd work with Nations.
Do you guys have any questions about this?
None, thank you.
Oh.
Jake?
Is there ever an opportunity to bundle projects together and get better pricing? So if we have
Yeah, I would say we do that, Jake, is on maybe not this roof, but we do bundle things. Now, when you're looking at roofs, we're looking in the millions of dollars generally when we're doing a full school. So we historically have not gone multiple schools together because, again, we're trying to get the life that we can out of the building. This Rolling Hills was constructed in 2000. It was opened in that time frame. The roof was probably put on in 1999. And so we are now 26, 27 years into this roof. I mean, that's a good life of that flat roof. But to your point, yes, I just put out a bid package tonight for summer work, and there are multiple things in there that are trying to get together with some vendors that might do 2, 3, 4 things together, or I have all 8 schools listed there, so there will be certain items that will be multiple.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
We're on to student learning.
So thank you. Tonight we'll get into the 4K-12 music program review. Want to thank all the people who have come to share their thoughts, their ideas, and their passion about music. Had an opportunity over the last couple weeks to meet with many good folks. They had a lot of passion, a lot of good ideas. I do appreciate them taking the time with me to lend me their perspective. I think one of the things that we had an opportunity to talk about was the fact that, in opening this new middle school, one of the things that we're mindful of and we keep coming back to is the fact that elementary education will look different going into the future. Middle level education will look different as we go into the future. And it's been something that's grounded our conversation. It's been something that we've had to be mindful of. We do have 4K going into all of our elementary schools. Our elementaries will end at 5th grade. Our middle school will begin at 6th grade. So as we get going tonight, Tom, if you want to advance. I don't have many slides here. Oh, Angela's got it. Okay. So tonight we're going to try to cover questions that came from the board, comments that came from the citizens as we go forward. So explaining the staffing implications if we implemented a 2-to-1 model, K-12, if we kept everything the same, and then any other potential ideas for program delivery. We want to share out parent survey data around electives. That survey was conducted in April of 25. We want to explain how music teachers have been part of the process and explain the lesson structure. What is it and what is the impact? Go ahead. And then we're mindful of that, students are more likely to feel known and valued by adults if they're involved with extracurricular activities, identify more strongly with their school, and build meaningful peer connections. We know this. Music, athletics, arts, performance arts, we know that this does draw kids in. And that we do see the academic benefits, higher engagement and persistence, increased motivation and resilience, stronger time management and goal setting, improved collaboration, and higher GPAs. The research suggests this, and we do see this among our student athletes. We see this among our students participating in the arts, in music, and in theater. So we do see this as well. If you could advance. And
All right, so I'm going to provide an overview of our current music programming and our district-funded music activities. So in terms of our academic offerings, general music instruction is provided during the regular school day for all students from kindergarten through 6th grade. We also do provide general music for our 4K students at our full-day school sites. As a reminder that we talked about last time, we are required by state statute to provide general music instruction in kindergarten through 6th grade. So then beginning in 7th grade, students are still required to take a music course, but they have some options here. And those options include general music, band, orchestra, or choir. Our instrumental programs begin at elementary, with orchestra starting in 4th grade, and then band in 5th grade. Then in addition to that, we also offer a number of summer school opportunities that support student interest and skill development beyond the school year. So listed here are the offerings from last summer's program, which include band, orchestra, and choral offerings. I do want to note that the offerings each summer can vary as they are dependent on staff availability. So we are currently in the process of planning those offerings. So for this summer's program, that may look slightly different than what is here. In addition to our curricular offerings, the district also funds a wide range of co-curricular and extracurricular music opportunities. These opportunities occur outside of the school day, and you can see those offerings listed on the right side of this slide. We have musicals, different clubs, various bands, and a variety of concerts. And again, these activities all occur outside of the school day, so the district allocates additional funds to each of these areas beyond our regular school day programming to pay teachers to organize and attend these offerings.
Sorry.
So there we go. All right, I'm going to take the baton here from Angela here. So I'm going to, over the next several slides, I'm going to attempt to provide some detailed data to you, and you know, if there's several degrees to every story, use data to help you understand where we are right now with our music programs, generally speaking, throughout the whole district. What is our financial investment? What is our rates of participation? Our retention rates of students who are in those programs. So I'm trying to answer some of the questions I've heard from the room and also maybe anticipate some of the questions that you might have here. So we'll start by looking at student to teacher ratios over the last 3 completed school years. So this data here is simply our, sorry, I'm going to try to navigate this part here and I can't get this to hide, I apologize. The last 3 school years, or I should say the last 2 school years along with the current school year. So in 23-24, what we're looking at here is we are looking at teacher FTE, which is full-time equivalency. A 1.0 teacher is a 100% appointment where they are working all school day, each and every day. We do have some teachers who are less than a 1.0 FTE. Some teachers might be a 0.5 FTE where they only work half the school days. Those are rare occurrences, but they do happen. But teacher FTE helps us understand how many employees, how many full-time equivalent employees do we have in a certain subject area. At the top of the screen there, you see it says MASD teacher FTE and function 125,000. We use Wisconsin, all Wisconsin public school districts use what we call the WUFR, which is the Wisconsin Uniform Financial Accounting Requirements. Every expense and every revenue that we record has an account code attached to it. So whether it's buying a chair, a desk, a copy machine, or paying a teacher's salary, there's an account code attached to that. Every one of those account codes is going to have a 6-digit function number that ultimately says, here's the subject area where this expense was dedicated to. So it could be math, it could be elementary education, it could be bus transportation. When the lead number is a 1, that is going to be an instructional expense, meaning that was money spent on a student in a classroom. A lead number that's a 2 is going to be something that is for the school district, not necessarily in the classroom. I mentioned school bus transportation. It could be a guidance counselor. A guidance counselor supports a student, but not necessarily in a classroom setting. Okay, so art, those 6-digit numbers there, art is 121,000, English is 122,000, world language is 123,000. Every subject area has their bucket. So what we're looking at right now is function 125,000, and that incorporates our band, our music, our orchestra. All those subject areas are in that bucket of 125,000. So as we look at our teacher FTEs, you can see in the 24-25 school year, I should back up for a second, in 23-24, we were at 13.74 FTE. In the next school year, 24-25, we increased by 2 FTE. We increased our financial investment here. And in choir, you can see we added 1 full-time teacher, and we also added another in orchestra. And then as we enter the current school year, we maintain those financial investments. All right, so the data that you're seeing on this screen right here is all school districts are required to submit financial data. Our auditor came in January, talked to you about all these things that we're required to do. And our our internal controls is a way to measure, is Mukwonago coding their expenses correctly? Are they following the woofer as they're expected to? Those are the types of things that an auditor will look at. Not only will we submit financial information, but we also commonly submit all of our staffing information. So there's a Y staff report that Ms. Sarah Scheel right here is responsible for submitting on our behalf. So we understand district-wide and statewide how many teachers are in subject areas, and also with our student counts that we submit to the state, we are able to retrieve this data in a uniform manner across school districts. So on the screen here I have 10 K-12 school districts in Waukesha County. I don't have Arrowhead on here as that's a 9-12 school district. So for uniformity here, we have 10 K-12 school districts in Waukesha County. This is the 22-23 combined student-to-teacher ratio for all of our teachers in the 125,000 bucket. So this would be general music at the K-6 level, along with our choir teachers, and then our instrumental teachers, which would be orchestra and band combined, okay? So really you kind of have your, out of 10 school districts, you have your top 3, you have your bottom 3, and then you have your 4 in the middle. And what you're seeing right here is that we're one of the 4 in the middle in the 22-23 school year. We had 378 students throughout the district for every 1.0 teacher dedicated towards music, choir, and instrumental courses, okay? Fast forward to the 23-24 school year. Again, we remain in amongst the middle 4, so not in the top, not in the bottom. And then as we fast forward to the 24-25 school year, this is where it's now being reflected. We did add 2 full-time teachers into choir and to orchestra, and you can see that we have a lower ratio of students to staff. So we always prefer a lower ratio where we can provide as many teachers as possible to keep class sizes small, to offer opportunities here. But obviously we have a lot of competing priorities in developing a balanced budget and doing all the things that's expected of us. But only Kettle Moraine had a lower students to staff ratio than us. So we had 308 students throughout the district for every 1.0 teacher in function 125,000, the music area. If we unpack that and just look at the 24-25 school year now, we'll take a look at general music, choir, and instrumental areas. So in general music, we have 5 full-time equivalent teachers who teach our 6 elementary schools, and they provide instruction to kindergarten through 6th grade. You can see here again, our staffing ratio puts us in the middle 4 of the districts. But when we look at choir, you can see that we have a very favorable ratio in 24-25. And we also have a very favorable ratio here in the top 3 for instrumental music, band, and orchestra. Okay, so that again reflects what we've invested, increased our investment there. I'll do the same thing now to take a look at not just the number of full-time equivalent teachers and the number of students they serve, but then also the amount of expenditures that we put into function 125,000. So again, same 10 school districts in Waukesha County. You can see that we're going to see this number several times on the coming slides. We have $1,500,040 was our investment in 24-25. That's the second highest in the county, only behind Waukesha. Okay, so as we talk about investments, there it is for that particular subject area. So just conclusions from the couple data sets that we saw there is that we have the second to best student to teacher ratio, which is driven by increasing our FTE in choir and instrumental areas, only behind Kettle Moraine. And we have the second highest overall investment of $1.5 million, only behind Waukesha. Any questions so far?
I have one question. With the state statute being a requirement for music until 6th grade, is that different once 6th grade gets moved to 7th and 8th? I mean, does it change anything, or is it still a requirement for 6th grade?
Yep, the requirement remains the same.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll take an internal look here at our 24-25 expenditures. This is the most recently completed year. As we look back at last year, there's that $1,500,000 value again. We look at the prior 5 years, and you can see that from 2019-20 through 24-25, you can see that we have increased our investment in our music areas. So there's over an additional $500,000 increase since the 1920 school year. When we take a look at the top 10 subject areas by function, so again, we're looking at instructional areas, that 6-digit function number, if it leads with a 1, where are we placing our investments by subject area? So all teachers are general classroom teachers at the elementary ed level, whether they're 4K, 5K, all the way through the 6th grade. They fall into a general bucket of elementary education. That 6-digit number would be 110,000. In the 7th grade and beyond, then, we are able to break this out, and for some specialty areas as well, we can understand how much money are we putting into math, into English, into science, so on and so forth. So if we take a look at the top 10, we can kind of get a feel for how much are we putting into these subject areas throughout our district. That one to the right, that elementary ed kind of skews it. It's a little bit of an outlier, so if I just remove that, now I have 9 of the top 10 subject areas by function. It gives the school board and the community an idea of where we are placing our investments and to what degree those investments are, okay?
All right, so then I'm going to review the survey data that Joe referenced at the beginning of the presentation. So in April of 2025, we administered an elective survey to families of students in grades 3 through 6, and we did this to help inform future planning around elective offerings and ensure that we're providing and developing the elective courses that are of interest to our students and families. We did receive 529 completed responses, giving us a strong data set to really understand our families' perspectives in this area. And then in the survey, we asked families 2 types of questions. The first type of question was how likely their student would be to take a specific elective course. And then the second type of question asked them to rate the importance of each elective type overall. So in this first graph, we are showing the percentage of families who said their child would be extremely likely or somewhat likely to take a specific elective course. And you can see from the graph, Spanish, physical education, and art were rated the highest, coming in at about between 73 to 82% of respondents saying their child would be extremely likely or somewhat likely to take that course. You can see the music electives, which are indicated by the light blue bars on the graph, were rated significantly lower than those other areas, with all of our music courses being in the range of 36 to 46% of respondents. Then in this next graph, we are showing how parents rated various elective areas. So we asked parents to rank the elective area from 1 to 5, with 1 being the most important elective. So in the graph, we have the percentage of respondents who rated the elective area either most important or second most important. So you can see that CTE, which is our career and technical education courses, came in the highest with 38% of respondents rating that area as most important or second most important. And then the other elective areas were rated quite a bit lower than that, with music being rated the lowest at 13% of respondents. And then this next graph was a duplicate.
Yep, that's my fault. I apologize. I have the same graph in there twice, so apologize for that. All right, thanks, Angela. Yeah, that survey that Angela gave was given out last April to 529 survey respondents took it out of 1,401 available families. So 38% of all families did reply with those answers there. The next couple of slides, I'll talk about our rates of participation over the last couple of school years, and then also what our retention rates are in some of these subject areas here. So in orchestra, band, and choir, what we did to, like, as a starting point to understand this data is every student is really a yes or no. It's one or the other. Did you take an orchestra class? Did you take a band course? Did you take a choir course? Certainly in some instances, there are students who might take 2 or more, but and really just to say of the entire student body, did this particular student, yes or no, take this subject area? And so it kind of gives us a starting point as to, what rates of participation look like. Orchestra is offered in the 4th grade for the first time, and then it's continuously offered thereafter, but about 40% of our 4th graders begin to take orchestra in the 4th grade year, and then as they move on into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grades, so on and so forth, you can see what those rates of participation look like. In band, again, is offered for the first time in 5th grade as an elective, and you can see between 32 and 40% of students in the last 3 years have started with band, and then again, you can see the rates of participation thereafter. Choir is offered for the first time in the 7th grade, and we have about 25 to 29% of students in those 3 years that would participate in choir. To help bring a little bit more context, like what do the other elective areas look like? I'll just note here, some of these courses are not electives at each and every grade level. At some of them, they are required courses. So if you take a look at art in the 7th grade year and business in the 8th grade year, you have 96, 97%. So for the most part, it is universally required of our students here. So as we take a look at those rates of participation, early in those 2 subject areas, there's a super high rate of participation because of the requirements. But then it becomes an elective. You kind of get a feel for what percentage of the student body are taking those courses in art and in business. As I just kind of look at business here, you can kind of see it's very high in 8th grade because business courses are a mandate there. In the 9th and the 10th grade year, students are really busy with their core classes, math, science, social studies, ELA. Once students get through some of those requirements, by the junior or senior year, they have some more elective opportunities as they knock out those required courses. You can see that business then goes up in the 11th grade and stays high there in the 12th grade. In Phi-Ed and world language, again, you can see, Phi-Ed has, at the high school level, students are required to take 1.5 Phi-Ed credits to graduate. So some of those credits or some of those rates of participation are due to requirements, some are due to electives. It's really hard to parse out, well, which of those years are speaking to electives. It's really impossible to tell that, but at least it gives us a general idea of what the data says to us. And then likewise, we can see what participation rates were in world language. Okay. The next 2 slides, we'll look at the current freshman class and senior class. So again, as we look at English, math, science, and social studies, virtually students are taking each and every one of those subject areas, which kind of validates what we would suspect. And then we take a look at the other elective areas to say, where do our freshmen typically enroll when given the choice. Fast forward to the senior year then. Again, those core areas, English, math, science, and social studies, those students are meeting those requirements and then maybe have an opportunity to choose other elective areas. We see business go up significantly from where it was on the last slide, but we get a feel for where our students are taking these courses when given the chance to choose. Lastly, I'll talk about retention rates here. So anytime, on this screen here, we take a look at a particular cohort of students. So if we look at the 116 students that were in the 5th grade in the 21-22 school year, the following school year, they'll move to the 6th grade, and after that, the 7th grade, so on and so forth. So the 116 students in this instance that are in band in the 5th grade, there are 106 of them that are still remaining in the 6th grade. And of those 106 students in the 6th grade, 88 of them persist into the 7th grade. And we take a look at that particular cohort of students as they move grade level to grade level. So we can do this across each grade level to kind of look at, retention rates to say when students begin, how many of them persist on, okay? This methodology that we're using is a cohort survival method. We use this when we're predicting enrollment. Actuaries use this across a wide variety of year-to-year progressions across a wide number of statistical interests, okay? The last slide to this slide shows what those same head counts are, but simply converted into percentages. So of all the 5th graders who started in the 5th grade in this particular cohort, 91% of them continued on and persisted into the 6th grade. Of those, as we go look at that next yellow box of 83%, of those 91% who moved in and continued on in the 6th grade, 83% of those kids moved on and continued to play in the 7th grade. Of those 83% who moved into the 7th grade, 77% persisted into the 8th grade. So ultimately, we can look from grade level to grade level as to what are the rates of persistence of the kids who start. Do they continue on? So generally speaking, if we just put these 4 years together here, we have 87%, generally speaking, in just these 4 years, 87% of 5th graders. And can I borrow the clicker here just so I can have the laser pointer here? Thank you. So this 87% there, that's for this snapshot of data, represents the persistence of, on average, of 5th graders who continue to play in the 6th grade. Of all 6th graders who play, sorry, I'm losing, the 86% of 6th graders will continue on to the 7th grade. Of all 7th graders who play, 77% of them will continue on into the 8th grade, and we can look at each grade level. And then when we take a look of all the kids who begin, when we look at the survival ratio from this methodology, we can see that 16% of students that begin in the 5th grade will continue on into the 12th grade. So when we do this for the subject areas that we're considering tonight, we can see, what our retention data suggests. So there's that.
Tom, I have a question. Can you go back to this graph?
Yeah.
Hypothetical, if we get rid of the elementary school where kids are starting in band, and we eliminate it from the elementary school and we put it into the middle school, what if we anticipate that high number going into the middle school? What is that going to do for staffing? Are we going to need more staff into the middle school?
Great question. I'm going to let Rachel answer that. So I won't answer your question now, but Rachel will answer that in just a couple minutes.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then lastly, this is my last slide, and I'll pass the baton here. So just when we talk about like the holistic nature of our music programs throughout the district and what our investments are, not just on the teachers, we talk about the classroom spaces and the performance areas. In the 2016, we had the referendum project at Mukwonago High School. In 2018, it opened, and we dedicated $5.4 million of that $49.5 million project towards new classroom spaces for band, choir, and orchestra. What we used to have was not good. So we definitely improved those areas significantly, and then we also added a $10.7 million new performing arts center. In that performing arts center, we have 2 full-time employees. We have one of them here now. Hi, Cole. Cole's one of them, who operate that. Over the last 2 school years, we have had 89 elementary, middle school, and high school performance concerts in that space, so about 45 performances a year for our students. So we really use the PAC. First and foremost, there's a couple philosophies on how to operate a PAC. Are you going to have outside professional performers, off-Broadway, come in, things of that nature? Or are you going to dedicate your spaces to your students in your community? And that's what we've dedicated our space here to our students and to our community groups here. In Parkview, as we look ahead here to the opening of the new middle school in fall of 2027, of the $89.1 million project, we'll have $4.34 million budgeted for new music classrooms. And also an additional $1 million will be dedicated to an additional performance stage in the cafeteria that will give us a second venue for when the PAC might be booked out. We'll have a second performance area at the middle school setting for additional performances to be to take the stage. So with that, I'll pass it to Rachel.
Thank you. So as we look at staffing ideas, something that we want to start with is just Tom referenced that full-time equivalency, and really what does that mean? So across our system, we have varying schedules, we have varying number of minutes that teachers teach, and so we try to standardize what does a full-time teacher look like. And so at the elementary level, where there's no bells, the minutes vary by content area. A typical teacher on average teaches between 1,500 to 1,600 minutes per week. At the middle level, a full-time teacher teaches either 3 of 4 90-minute blocks or 6 of 8 41 to 44-minute blocks. Teachers at the middle school level also have a homeroom and they have a duty assignment. And so they are anywhere between 1475 to 1610 minutes per week. And then at the high school operates on 30 62-minute sections per week, and our full-time teachers there teach 24 of those sections for an average of 88 minutes per week. And so I think this is important to note because no two teachers look the same typically in what their daily, what their day looks like, but we try to make it as equitable as we can in, again, the number of minutes that teachers are teaching to be considered full-time. So we're going to look at some staffing ideas for the 27-28 school year. And so what this looks like is in 27-28, 6th graders are at the new middle school and 4K is in our elementary schools. So here's just a staffing formula example. When we talk about staffing, when we talk about keeping everything the same, keeping everything the same is lesson structure is the same, so it's a pull-out lesson model. If I were to have 7th grade, 93 students in band, I would need 4 sections to teach those 93 students. That equates to 23 students per section. I think the music teachers would not be happy with me if I were to put 30 students into one class and ask them to teach that single-handedly. So 93 students equates to 4 sections. In 8th grade, if I have 56 students signed up for band, that would equate to 2 sections at 28 students each. With a lesson structure provided at 20 minutes 1 time a week on a 2 to 3 week rotation, I would need 1 full-time teacher to teach in this model. In a 2-to-1 model, so we're going to look at what that means. If I have 93 students in band, I would still need 4 sections with 23 students each. I would still in 8th grade need 2 sections with 28 students each. But because those music lessons, those individualized lessons are now provided directly in the classroom, I need 2 full-time teachers to teach this caseload. Tom, you might have to be my clicker. Okay. So what does this look like in actual staffing? So I want to go on record here as saying these are staffing and numerical projections. These are numbers based on historical enrollment trends. Students have not signed up for classes yet, and so these numbers could be subject to change based on what students sign up for going into the 26-27 school year. If, however, at the elementary level, I have 235 students signed up for orchestra, and we ran a model where our orchestra teachers delivered 30 minutes of whole group instruction twice a week. I would need 2 staff members to run that. I currently have 2 elementary orchestra teachers, and so I would not need an increase at the elementary level. In middle school, with our incoming 6th graders coming to the middle school, I'm looking at 162 students who would be in orchestra in middle school. I currently only have a part-time orchestra teacher in middle school. A part-time orchestra teacher cannot teach 162 students in a 2-to-1 model. And so to staff that, I would need 2 full-time teachers, which would be an increase in 1 full-time plus a 0.26 staff member. In high school, I'm looking at 90 students enrolled in orchestra. I currently have 1 high school orchestra teacher. In a 2-to-1 model, I need to double staff some of those classes, and so I'm looking at a 1.5, so a 1.5 teacher. And so the total increase for the 2-to-1 model across K-12 would be a 1.76 increase in staffing for orchestra. Tom, can you click? Band, if I look at band, so band starts in 5th grade. And so you're going to have to stay with me here because this one gets a little bit more complex. In band, based on historical projections, I'm looking at band at elementary serving 118 students. The problem with this is that it's 118 students across 6 schools. And so while I only technically would most likely need 1 full-time person to serve 118 students, there's not, one person cannot travel to 6 schools and make that work. And so I would need 2 part-time people to travel to 6 different schools to make that scheduling work. At the middle school level, with the band, again, 6th grade band coming to the middle school, I'm projected to have 251 students in band. I currently only have 1 band teacher at the middle school. To serve 251 students, I would need to increase that to 2 band teachers. So I would be looking at those 2 elementary band teachers I currently have, splitting their time between serving those 118 elementary and then coming over and serving the middle. That gets a little complicated because our elementary and our middle do not run the same schedule. One starts earlier than the other. So scheduling wise, we run into some hiccups, but we usually can figure out a way to make it work. In high school then, we have 96 students total enrolled in band. Again, I currently have 1 staff. If we run a 2-to-1 model where we're doubling up on some classes, I would be looking at a 0.5, a half a person addition. And so total for band, I would be looking at a half of a person of an increase. Again, can be done. I think we all know with hard to fill positions, anytime we're hiring part-time, that does present a challenge. So now what happens if we keep everything the same? Oh, Tom, I think you went too far. Thank you. Yep. So what happens if we keep everything the same? So elementary staffing implications. So now everything the same, we're doing pull-out lessons in our elementary along with some small group lessons as well as teaching general music. So I want to first draw attention because I think this came up. Again, these are based on right now projections. 5K, you see 13 sections, that is likely to grow. We have students who enroll between now and the end of the year. I anticipate that number growing. Right now for general music, we have, like Tom referenced, 5 full-time teachers. If all 5 of those full-time teachers remain, in our current projections, each of those teachers would be teaching 1,164 minutes. If we reduced that to 4 full-time teachers, they would be teaching 1,455 minutes. If I had a crystal ball, I would anticipate we're going to see these sections fluctuate for next year. Again, our kindergarten sections are going to go up. And so it's hard to put together a staffing projection without knowing final numbers, but I would safely assume, again, crystal ball, I will need all 5 FTE at the elementary to service all of our elementaries when it comes to traveling. We need somebody to travel to Eagleville. And again, when you get down to 4, traveling across 6 sites becomes really difficult. Band, if we keep everything the same, in 5th grade, I'm looking at 118 students. Again, I currently have 2 full-time staff. I would only need 1, but again, it's that I would need 2 part-time people because, again, 1 person can't go to 6 schools to service 118 students. And then in orchestra, I'm going to have 143 4th graders, 92 5th graders. To service that number, I would need 2 full-time staff. I currently have 2 full-time staff, and so nothing would change there. So what is the total staffing implication? It would be a reduction in band by 1 person. You'll see that when we get to now what that looks like at the secondary, that person is just going up then to the middle school. Tom, can you click? So then what are the 6 through 8 staffing implications if we keep everything the same? In band, Again, in 6th grade, I'm looking at 102 students, 7th 93, 8th 56. The total number of students there is 251. I would need 2 FTE to service that. And so that's a 1.0 increase. Again, I would reallocate my elementary person to that position. In orchestra, I'm looking at 163 students total. I currently only have a part-time orchestra teacher. I cannot give a .74 orchestra teacher 163 students. And so I'm looking at 2 full-time teachers to service that number. That would be an increase of 1.26 teachers. Choir, with 6th grade coming on board, I'm looking at 258 students in choir. I currently only have 1 full-time choir teacher at the middle school. Again, I cannot give a 1 full-time choir teacher 258 students and expect that teacher to again deliver in the current lesson structure. So I would need to increase that to 2 full-time teachers, which would result in a, again, 1 person increase. And then if we kept everything the same, in both 6th and 7th grade, music is required. So kids who did not take band, orchestra, and choir would be required to take general music. And so where you get the 81 and the 107 from is just, I looked at what the total student enrollment was in grade 6 and 7, and those are the kids who are left. So 81 in 6th, 107 in 7th, and so that's 188 students who would be taking general music. I currently have a part-time, a .5 staff member who teaches general music, and then her other .5, her other part of the position, she goes to the high school. I can't have a half-time person teach 188 students. That position would require a full-time person, and so that is an increase in a .5 position. And so the total staffing implication there is a 3.76 staffing increase. Again, if I reallocated the band, it would be a 2.76 staffing increase. Tom? So what are some other possible ideas for band and orchestra at elementary? So one is looking at an app. Oh, Tom, can you mess me up, Tom? So one is looking at an after-school or before-school club at our elementary level. So we currently have our choirs at our elementary level, some of which do this model. Another idea is to partner with our community ed partnership. So this is something that already exists in Mukwonago Area School District. And we have courses like yoga, art, cookie baking, that all run very successfully. I also want to point out that we don't have weight training that exists at elementary, but we do have over 100 students who participate in grades 5th through 8th in a weight training program that is run through the community ed, and it runs very successfully. And so again, we know we can do this. It's just a matter of getting it launched. We could look at using the general music time. So all kids, again, have general music at the elementary level. What would it look like to take some of that time to deliver some of those band and orchestra lessons? And then we have a really robust summer school program. And so what does it look like to continue to expand on the offerings there for band and orchestra?
Next
Hand
slide.
it over to Angela.
Okay, so
Rachel, I have a question.
Yeah.
Where would the funds come from for after school and before school?
So for after school, before school, we would have to look at our co-curricular handbook. We do offer stipends for most of the activities that are offered during that time. And so that's something that we would have to look at investing in, either through a reallocation of current funds or through the additional allocation of funding.
Thank you.
all right, so next I'm going to
I have a
provide.
question. Sorry.
Oh,
No,
What is the advantage of the 2-to-1 model over what we're doing currently?
So I think a couple of things. I think one, it keeps kids in the music class for their music lessons. So when we looked at the new middle school and the design of the new middle school, we've designed spaces where we can have that pull-out instruction right in the music class in those small spaces. So it keeps kids in their music class, requiring less competition for, again, those competing priorities. The 2-to-1 model provides, I think, more ability for contact time. So right now, that lesson structure is at the elementary, those 20 minutes one time per week, and then the whole group is 30 minutes, sometimes twice a week. This is, a 2-to-1 model is every time you have class, you have access to 2 teachers. So your lesson structure is far more available to you than in a pull-out model. So I think, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to it.
Doesn't it also help, like, the kids being pulled from other classes?
That is, yeah, absolutely an advantage.
All right, so next I'm going to provide some more details about what our general music and our instrumental programming looks like. So starting with general music at the elementary level, again, we do provide general music instruction to all of our students who are in our full day 4Ks through 6th grade. So for our full day 4K students, they receive 1 30-minute class per week currently. And then our kindergarten through 6th grade students receive 2 30-minute classes per week. And the focus of our general music instruction is truly foundational. And it includes things like singing, rhythm, movement, listening, and those early music literacy skills. Students are introduced to music reading and basic notation, and they do introductory units with various instruments, including recorders, ukuleles, and guitars. The skills that the students learn in general music directly support their readiness for instrumental and ensemble participation in the later grades. Next slide, Tom. So this slide has an overview of how lessons and rehearsals are currently structured for orchestra, band, and choir from 4th through 8th grade. So at the elementary level, instruction occurs through pull-out lessons and through scheduled rehearsals. So students receive 1 20-minute small group lesson a week, and then they also receive 1 to 2 30-minute whole group rehearsals depending on their grade level. At the elementary level, chorus is offered as a club and usually happens before school or during the lunch and recess period. Then when we look at the secondary level, our instruction shifts more fully into those scheduled class periods, but we have pull-out lessons still occurring and sectionals that supplement that instruction. So the way that students sign up for these lessons and how often they occur each quarter varies based on the course, but regardless of this, these lessons all occur in that pull-out model with students coming out of other scheduled academic courses. Next slide. So then looking at the impact on instruction, at the elementary level, small group lessons operate on a rotating schedule. So you can see a sample of an elementary band small group lesson schedule on the right of the slide. So this is the schedule for band lessons at one of our elementary schools. You can see from the schedule that each instrument group meets with the teacher on a weekly basis for a 20-minute lesson, and then the next week the schedule rotates so that students are not missing the same time each week. In a classroom, what that looks like is small groups of students who are in those different instrument groups coming and going in the classroom throughout the day. That creates the need for classroom teachers to reteach or provide makeup instruction to those students who have missed different parts of instruction throughout the day, impacting that overall instructional flow for both the teachers and the students. And then our whole group rehearsals at the elementary level also create some trade-offs as students miss WIN time once per week. So WIN stands for What I Need Time and is a daily time that we provide for students that is designed for targeted intervention, reinforcement of skills, and then extensions specific to what each student needs. So when students miss this time, it limits their access to those supports. also important to note is that students at the elementary level are allowed to take both band and orchestra if they would like to. So for students who choose that option, that impact of missing instruction and the disruption to the school day is doubled. And then at the secondary level, students still get pulled out of other academic courses for their small group lessons. So again, the impact is that the teacher and the student need to find time to make up for what they missed. Next slide.
So just some other considerations around the work that's taking place. So none of the ideas that we are considering or that we will continue to consider are designed to reduce staff. Tom spoke to the increase in staffing that we've had over the last 2 years, and our intention is to continue with our staffing to continue to be able to provide a robust music program. One of our other considerations is around band. So we've talked a little bit about our band numbers, and we have a model right now where students are not allowed to enter band after 6th grade. And so we want to start to look at ideas in which students can enter band after 6th grade, but then what does that look like? Does it mean offering an introductory band course? Does it mean, again, a different model of instruction? But we know that we want to explore the idea of students being able to enter band after 6th grade. And then I think, we've said this in every presentation, we know that our music program has incredible strengths, and we want to continue to capitalize on those strengths. I was in an elementary building this past week watching the music teacher greet every student by name at the door while playing his ukulele. And it was the most welcoming, wonderful experience that I have seen. And so again, we know we have great things happening, and so we want to continue to, again, capitalize on those great things. So as we look at the work, we, as a music department, so elementary music teachers came together on December 10th. On January 12th, we met with our instrumental music teachers. And on January 14th, we had the option for all music teachers to come together. January 26th, we brought the entire department together. So Angela and myself facilitated some discussion around different program ideas, and we conducted what was considered a plus delta. So just at positives, and then what are some things that we're wondering as we analyzed our current model of program instruction. From there, from that meeting on the 26th, we made the decision to form subcommittees. And so we actually have our first subcommittee meeting being held on Thursday of this week, February 12th. And our subcommittees are focused on 3 categories. So one is metrics of success. We've heard a lot of conversation about, right, is it enrollment? Is it, winning competitions? Is it, what are we going to define as a successful music program? And we want our teachers at the table for that discussion. And so that's going to be one of the subcommittees. Cross-district program comparisons. So we're going to have a subcommittee dive into what are other districts doing? Are they successful? What could it look like here? And then based on those cross-district comparisons, based on exploration of other models, what are the staffing implications that we see? And so we've invited all music teachers to express an interest on serving on those subcommittees. It is after school, it is compensated time, and we had a really great interest from our music teachers in serving on that. And then the full music department is going to reconvene on March 6th, and we're going to go over what the subcommittee has been doing. Up until that, we'll have had 2 subcommittee meetings by that point in time, and we'll continue our planning and continue our board updates around that planning for you.
And so going forward, we're committing to monthly board updates and staff updates in this area. The Parkview Middle School Steering Committee coordination, that will continue over the next months. We'll continue to hear from community members, students, and parents' feedback as we present these plans. And then we'll be coming forward. I have a monthly parent advisory group, and that advisory presentation will happen, and I will get input from parents on that parent advisory. What questions do you have?
Rachel, when you were putting up all of the extra teachers that we would need with certain models. Can you put kind of like a price tag on that?
Can I get that information to you?
Yeah, so you can just like next month.
Yeah.
Sure, because I know you're busy, so
Yep.
next month would be great. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question.
Crosby?
So, I think it's slide 48. I'm looking at the pull-out schedule. So, what potential classes are kids being pulled out of?
It really is, it's throughout the whole day. So kids are missing different things. They might be missing a piece of their literacy instruction. They're missing pieces of math, science, social studies, sometimes even other specials.
Okay.
It just depending on what time of that day is. And again, this is rotating, so they miss a different chunk of time each day, but it's throughout the whole day. So it really hits all of those areas. They do try to ensure that they're not pulling the kids out of the first 15 minutes of instruction, but at the elementary level, for example, our literacy instruction is 2 hours. So any chunk of that is going to be an important chunk that they're missing.
Right. Has there been feedback from the teachers where the kids are being pulled out of that class? What does it do to the class as a whole? Like, I know that student is missing class to go to,
Yep.
Band or orchestra. How does that impact the rest of the class as well? And how does that impact the teacher that's teaching that class?
Yep. So as this is occurring, as kids are coming and going throughout the day, there's obviously a bit of a disruption factor as that's happening. But then if you think about one teacher and she might have kids in a number of those different groups. So she might have a child who misses a piece of literacy instruction. She might have a child who misses a different piece of that same literacy block. She might have a child who missed some math instruction. So now she has to find some time during the day to bring those students up to speed while students are doing something else, and it just creates a definite challenge for them in the classroom.
I think there's also just like the logistical that you don't always think about, right, from the teacher's perspective, but right, like we're in partners and my partner now has to leave, right, because we're past the direct instruction, but now we're in group work. And right, as a teacher, you're constantly thinking on your feet, but now it's, okay, quick, go join this group of 3. And now my partner comes back for share out time, but my partner wasn't here when we developed it. So like, it's little things like that that can sometimes be disruptive to the learning as well.
Any other questions? Jake?
Can we go back to slide 44? So Rachel, just looking at the numbers here, can you help me get a better appreciation for orchestra? Why we would need 2 FTE versus just adding 1 and maybe having 1 3/4? When I look at the numbers, it seems like.
So yeah, so by grade level is really why would be looking at the 2, because I would be looking at 6th grade. That would most likely be 3 sections. 7th grade would be 3 sections, and 8th grade would be 1 section. So it's just a little bit more difficult to schedule that. You could probably, again, depending on how the schedule rolls out.
I know it's a quarter, right? But every little bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And again, that's where I would say, again, staffing projections not set in stone. Absolutely would need an increase, whether it's a 1.26 or does it turn into a 1.84. Some of that lands in how you have to schedule the kids and where those schedules land.
But already having some, I'm assuming that's 1 person at 3/4.
1% at 7.74.
It's an easier.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So if we're looking at the 2-to-1 model versus the keep it the same model, am I seeing this correctly that we would have less of a staff increase going to a 2-to-1 model than we would keeping it the same? Sorry, I'm just bouncing between a bunch of slides here, so I just want to make sure I'm reading that correctly.
So if we did the 2-to-1 model from 6th through 12th, we would not see a staffing increase. Those staffing allocations from elementary would go towards secondary. So if we just did it 6th through 12th, we would remain staff neutral. Is that what your question was?
Yeah, and then, well, I guess now I have two questions. So then what would it look like, what does our staffing look like if we stay the same and we offer what we're offering now? What is the staff increase like on that compared to what it would be in a 2-to-1 model if we only offered it from 6th grade and up?
So, okay, Tom, can you, do I have a clicker?
I need a summary slide.
I need a summary slide. So, can you go to slideshow, Tom? That's okay. Okay, so if I kept everything the same, Tom, can you move Craig? Thanks. Sorry, Craig.
Craig, are you still awake?
He doesn't know how to unmute.
Bueller? So if we kept everything the same, actually, I'm going to go back this way. I'm going to go back here. Oops. Tom, can you get me to orchestra? Okay. So if you look here at the 2-to-1 model at elementary, you see that currently at elementary I have 2 orchestra teachers, right? Now, Tom, go to the keep everything the same. To keep everything the same in orchestra, if I kept everything the same with 6th grade coming up, I need to add an orchestra teacher. Minimally, to Jake's point, 1 orchestra teacher, right? So I've got to move 1 to the middle school, which leaves me only 1 at the elementary. If I go to what my elementary orchestra looks like, so Tom, go back to the purple elementary. Yep. Nope, yep, that one. In orchestra, I've got 143 4th graders and 92 5th graders. I can't service that number of students with just 1 orchestra teacher. Does that make sense? I feel like that doesn't make sense, but you're saying yes.
To come back to your question, though, if we did the 2-to-1 model, that would be the movement. We'd have to look at the orchestra, choir, and band design at the elementary to maintain that or to shift that. And that's the neutral part of the staffing model.
Correct.
Okay. But if I'm still understanding this correctly, if we keep everything the same, that's where we see the biggest staff increase. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would sum it up like this. If we kept everything the same, biggest staff increase. If we do the 2-to-1 model, K through 12, staffing increase. If we do the 2-to-1 model, 6 through 12, staffing neutral.
Okay.
And I will get that on a slide deck for you next time.
And with the cost.
And with the cost.
Please.
Yeah.
Jason?
My question's to Tom, and we don't really need to be on the slide, but I was looking at 35, and you were talking about measuring retention and then also participation rates. Do you have any mechanism to forecast what retention and participation looks like if we get rid of 4th and 5th grade? Because, I mean, you already see a pretty dramatic drop, and we all know as you get older, as one of the citizens pointed out, as you get older, you're less likely to participate in new things. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I guess I couldn't take this data and extrapolate. I wouldn't feel comfortable trusting the numbers in that because that's a lot of guesswork on that part of it. I mean, there are examples of things, and I think of neighboring communities that offer certain youth activities at 2nd grade next door that we don't offer till 5th grade here. And by the time it all shakes out at the high school level, it all looks the same rates of participation. I would ask probably to find other school districts who start at whatever grade levels we're considering to say what does it look like at those districts. I wouldn't take our own data and guess with it. I'd look at somebody else to say what are their participation rates if they start at whatever grade level at whatever subject area.
I do think from a participation standpoint, it was on one of the slides where it talked about we don't allow kids to enter band after 6th grade. One of the conversations I had with one of the citizens who's deeply passionate about music. I said, how do you address numbers? And the person said, we offer marching band at the high school during the school day. Well, it's common. I mean, I'm familiar with that. And so, we talked about that a little bit with that person. We don't offer marching band during the school day at the high school. It's offered after school. A lot of school districts that have large high school bands, they have marching band as a class during the school day. So, I mean, there's a number of things that we could consider that may have an impact on the numbers that might not necessarily be something that would prevent a high school student, for instance, from taking the class. Build it into the day, don't put it at night, don't compete with work or maybe a sport that they're interested in, build it in as part of the curriculum during the school day. So things that we can consider as we build this out down the road.
Eric?
Just a few things that I kind of jotted down as we were going through this. What would the data look like if we just got rid of the mandatory class for music at 7th grade? Maybe we could use the 7th to 8th drop and kind of do a staffing projection for that. And then what would it look like if we did maybe a 4th grade orchestra? Could the general music teachers bring that on? I mean, I know we talked about this last month, and it's essentially, how to assemble your instrument and how to hold your instrument and just the basics, right? Is that something they can take on?
We do have that as one of the ideas, is looking at what can happen in the general music class that we will explore with our music team.
Okay. Because I think if we got rid of the 7th grade mandatory, I think those numbers are going to look significantly different and everything changes.
Just to be clear on the 7th grade, is that a district requirement or a state requirement that they take?
District requirement.
Okay.
Any other questions? I just want to make a comment, so the community knows. When I walk through the schools, a lot of times I'll ask our teachers, what can the board do for you? And the number 1 and 2 things that always come back to me are more classroom time and classroom disruptions. So it's a lot more complicated than just money as well. And teachers will come up and they'll say, hey, why can't, that aren't in music, saying, why can't I pull the students out of music to get more class time with me? So it's a lot more complicated than just pulling kids and thinking, well, my parents said it's okay. There's staffing issues, and like I said, those teachers have to go back and reteach whatever they lost in classroom. So just want to make you guys aware of that as well.
So just to follow up with my request next week or next month, I think I just broke it. If we could do the 2-to-1 model, which you said isn't, is like not the worst for staffing implications, if we could do that with getting rid of the 7th grade.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just ask the board if it's okay if we come back on a month by month with this. As you can see,
Yes.
it's kind of the number of things
Right.
that we have packed in there. If it's okay, we'll come back in March then at the committee of the whole, take what we talked about tonight, take the comments from the community, continue to evolve with our plan as we move towards that June final recommendation.
Right. And so the community knows when we come back in March, there won't be action taken. This is just exploratory till we figure out a good plan. So please put your input in, and if you have great suggestions for solutions, please email us. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Hey, I'm sorry, it's Mike.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
Good morning.
Yeah, just one input. I think the idea at the end, where it mentioned having beginner band later in school is a great idea if that can somehow be a part of it. I myself didn't start playing trombone till freshman year, and I loved it. But honestly, I don't think I would have ever tried it in elementary school. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Going to Curriculum Council update.
Yep. So just an update about our Curriculum Council. We had our second meeting on February 2nd, and the primary focus of our meeting was to review our 3rd through 5th grade ELA pilot. So Michelle Ziegler and I provided some additional information for the council regarding the pilot and our instructional priorities around resources. We also had some pilot teachers who joined us as guests at the Curriculum Council. meeting to share firsthand their experiences and then share a little bit about the strengths and challenges that they're seeing in the materials. We had a pretty robust discussion on the council, with council members asking questions and providing feedback that they had regarding the resources. And so then looking ahead, we will be putting together a summary of all the feedback that we're collecting from the various stakeholders, and we will provide that summary for both the board and the curriculum council. And then in March, we'll be bringing together all of our 3rd through 5th grade teachers, as well as our K-2 literacy reps, to review the pilot in its entirety and determine what recommendation we want to make to the school board in April. We have set a community viewing night for the recommended resource so that parents and community members can come out and view the resource that we will be recommending. That will be March 19th from 6 to 7:30 here in this room. And then our next council meeting is scheduled for May 4th. We have some things that we have slotted to be on the agenda, but we will post the final agenda as we get closer to that date.
Any questions?
One addition.
Mike?
Yeah, I thought the meeting was really put together well, and I really wanted to publicly thank the 4 teachers who gave very candid feedback on the pros and the cons of the pilot programs that they were using. And I understand there's a lot more teachers that they're going to be collecting the data from, but just very well done, and thank Angela and the 4 teachers who gave their feedback.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Going on to personnel topics.
All right, so the first one is around our substitute staffing agency. So this past year, we have used Teachers on Call for the past, ever since, Tom would know, but for as long as I've been on board. And this past year, Teachers on Call was acquired by Kelly Education. Kelly Education is a national staffing agency. And unfortunately, despite their promises, we have just seen a really big decrease in the services that they've provided to us. So we have experienced decline in the number in our fill rates, overall fill rates. We have had multiple issues in our substitutes being compensated appropriately, which has resulted in some cases of some of our substitutes leaving us and going to other districts. We have had just general customer service issues, so not responding to phone calls, not responding to emails. I'm looking at Sarah over here because Sarah works directly with some of our substitutes who want to come and work for us, who then are met with, again, just no responses, and then eventually, again, end up leaving, and we need substitutes. And so we started looking at what are some other alternatives. We did meet with our Kelly Education and Teachers on Call rep to say we are not happy. We are going through this and not happy with the level of service. They assured us things are going to change, we're going to get better. The month of November, I asked all of our administrators to administer a survey to every sub that came in their building. What's going well, what's not going well, and then I specifically asked about their experience with Kelly. We collected over, I think, 200 some surveys that all of our principals read and that I read. And when things still weren't going well, we called back in our Kelly Education rep and said, you said it was going to get better, it's still not getting better. And at this point, we're going to explore some other options. And so we looked at 2 other staffing agencies, Red Rover and Edu Staffing. Edu Staffing is the one that we landed on in terms of being what we think is going to be most beneficial to our district. Edu Staffing offers personalized district support, so we get our own representative, our own hiring manager, someone who will work directly with us, not just a corporate 1-800 line, which we think is very favorable. They will do their own on-site onboarding and training with all of our substitutes. So substitutes, the requirement to become a substitute is a bachelor's degree. You don't have to have a degree in teaching. And so that onboarding of making sure that people know how to be prepared to handle a classroom is really important. They do that right on site. We have seen their data from neighboring school districts, and their retention rates are far higher than what Teachers on Call Kelly Education currently has for our district. They have a lower contract rate, so granted it's only a percentage lower than what Kelly Education offers us, but every dollar matters. And then, like I said, there's a stronger fill rate. I know that the question might come up, like, why don't we do this ourselves? Why don't we become our own staffing agency? One of the biggest hindrances to that is that in the state of Wisconsin, when you belong to the WRS, you have to wait 75 days before you can, after you retire, before you can work for another WRS entity. And so one of our highest substitute employee groups is teacher retirees. And so when they work for EduStaff or Kelly Education, they can start working on day one. They don't have to wait that 75-day waiting period. Another really big factor is benefit eligibility. So all of these staffing agencies track and prevent the substitutes from working over that 30 hours per week so that we don't offer full-time benefits. When we have to do that on our own, that becomes a little bit cumbersome. And when we have long-term sub positions, which we do have quite a few, right? Maternity leave, surgeries, things like that, we are obligated to then offer health benefits, which becomes incredibly costly. As Tom spoke, we have a really great health package. And then obviously when you do it yourself, there is the onboarding, there's the training, there's the, right, you're managing it, and right now we don't have the staffing capability to take that on. So there's quite a few reasons why you don't typically see districts, especially districts of our size, handling this in-house. Pewaukee, Elmbrook, Hamilton, right now, Waukesha School District is the only one that I could find in Waukesha County that does handle it in-house, but they have their own person solely dedicated to this task. So based on all of that, I'm going to be coming forward with a recommendation to move forward with an EduStaffing contract for the 26-27 school year in the coming week.
So doing it ourselves, they used to call that double dipping, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But now they have to go through an agency, so you don't call it double dipping.
Correct.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Sectioning and scheduling update.
Yep, so I will be quick. You have seen me present on this before, so this is just an update as we are heading into our staffing and scheduling season. Tom, you want to click for me? Whatever Laura linked it in as. I have it as a slide deck, but I think it's a PDF. That's okay. That's fine.
Memo.
Yep.
Thought that was Verge for a minute.
All right, so like in past years, Tom, you can click. This is just, I don't know why I keep pressing this. It's not working. Yeah. Okay, all right. Our staffing priorities have not changed. Our goal is to provide highest quality education, maintain rigorous offerings, meet the needs of our students, maximize the impact of our employees. So again, nothing has changed around our staffing priorities. You can go ahead and click, Tom. So what is our process? So in February, we asked teachers to let us know if they are planning to retire or would like to request a transfer. So we want to make sure, again, we know what our staffing situation looks like. We then set enrollment. So students are currently in the process at the secondary level of scheduling their courses. And at elementary, we typically, again, know what our numbers are going to be by the end of February, middle of March. We don't typically see a ton of new enrollments that come in between April and the end of the year. What we do from there is we determine the number of sections that we're going to run at elementary, and then we determine the number of courses that are going to run at the secondary level based on student selections. You've heard me talk about this before, that scheduling at the secondary level is truly a dance. So we might have courses that run with 16 students. We might have courses that run with 27 students. It really depends on what our staffing picture looks like. We want to keep people full-time. That is our goal. And we want kids in the courses that they want to be in. And then we assign staff to teach those sections. So again, through that survey in the beginning of February where we ask people what do they want, and then to the end where we assign them to those sections. So I think this is important to share because if you remember a few years ago, we had some major staffing and scheduling glitches, and we changed a lot in the way we schedule. And so in 2023-24, we had 67% of our classes running at 75% capacity or above. And we have since increased that this year to 77% of classes running at 75 capacity or above. This is a highly efficient, again, and impactful staffing model. And so we are going to continue to increase this number as we continue to, again, get better at our staffing. But this is showing us, right, that classes are not running with 1 teacher, 7 students. That is not an efficient staffing and student model. And so one of the things that I was talking with the high school about, they moved from junior conferences to freshman conferences. So again, getting our students right when they come in the door to understand what courses they're interested in, what career paths they're interested in, and then getting them in the courses that they want to be in. So again, changing how we do the scheduling is going to continue to result in our courses running at that 75% capacity or above, which we view as a strong metric of success of our scheduling process. And so in closing, again, we're a high achieving district. We offer rigorous courses and we're going to continue to monitor our enrollment. Tom talked a little bit about our declining enrollment projections, but we will continue despite that to, again, offer those rigorous courses. I told you I'd be quick.
Nice. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to policy information.
So after several months of work, we have in front of you, it's in your docs as well as up on the screen, a recommendation both from the advisors and the administrators as to what they would like to see student government look like. You'll notice that the policy is short. It just covers the scope of what we do. The boxes that we checked, would be the purpose, and again, these are recommended. We will create administrative guidelines, and this, I think, from the board, the questions that you provided and some of the feedback that we had, Tom, if you'll scroll down, please. We get into the administrative guideline, then the last statement is that the superintendent will create administrative guidelines. If you go into your doc, you can see all of the red, and then the boxes that are checked that spell out what they would like to see from a student government standpoint. So the first idea that they had, they took the feedback from the board, the samples that the board provided, that they would establish a written constitution in the 26-27 school year that would be reviewed annually and reapproved by the student governments. That elected positions will include a president, a vice president, and 1 representative from each grade level. President and vice president must be in the 8th or the 12th grade. This is a common practice that they brought forward from other school districts, that you'd be electing the highest grade then to kind of oversee the student government. All elected positions will be for 1 school year, so you'd have to run again. Candidates must select 1 position to run for. The election process will include the following requirements. Again, to keep this manageable, this was something that we heard from both the administrators and the staff members, that we would have a recorded speech, a digital campaign flyer, and participation in an open forum. So we'd offer 3 means to get the word out for people, but not allow it to be a disruption to the school environment. And then members at large will be chosen through an application process each spring to allow for class scheduling. This does run as a class at the high school level, a formal class. Members at large remain eligible to run for elected positions. So one of the things that the staff brought forward as a concern If you remember during the presentation, we have about 140 student government members at the middle school. At the high school level, we have a solid class of 30 kids involved in student government. They do a lot of school spirit service type functions, and they didn't want to necessarily lose that. The principal shall ensure that all students have the right to vote and hold office. So the election process will be advertised to all students. All campaign materials will be reviewed and approved by the government advisor. If anybody saw Napoleon Dynamite, the final comment, all of your dreams will come true. We want to make sure that any promises are practical promises. All students will have the opportunity to vote electronically. That was the recommendation from the administration, to be able to capture as many kids in the vote as possible. All students will vote for the president and their class representatives. The vice president will be the candidate with the second highest number of votes after the president. Decision by the student government shall not be influenced by the faculty and administration, but will be subject to review by the principal and the advisor. Student government organizations shall be responsive to the needs and interests of all students and shall conduct open meetings to assure maximum involvement of students. At the middle school, this would be held during homeroom time. At the high school, they would be held during lunch or before school. Students shall have the right to and should be encouraged to recommend guidelines for their own conduct. These recommendations will be reviewed by the principal and student government advisor to assure they align with established policies of the board. Recommended guidelines will be in the Constitution and improved yearly by the elected members, and guidelines will mirror eligibility requirements and expectations for MASD sports and activities. I know that one of the concerns that the advisors have was if the school elects, then what happens if there's no participation? What happens if the student doesn't meet the standard? And we then talked about, well, what does it take to be a member of a club? What does it take to be a member of a sport? What does it take to be a member of the band? And applying those same principles then to student government. So at this point, these are recommendations. If there's more time needed to go back to staff, we could bring this back in March if needed. Otherwise, we can bring this back next week for final approval by the board.
I know we had talked about this, about the removal of a president or vice president that's not doing the work.
Yep. And that would be under the guidelines that will mirror eligibility. So, we want to make sure that we handle obviously the big things. Student violates the code of conduct, but then the participation piece, and we look at that similar to what it would look like from like practice. If you miss practice and it's unexcused, what does that look like? If you are withdrawing from the team, what does that look like? Similar process.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
So if this goes forward next week, if there's any questions, obviously reach out to me, but what we would be doing then is bringing you progress updates into next school year as to how it's going, and have the students come, have the advisors come and do some presentations to the board.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to student services.
All right, I just have a behavior council update for the group here tonight. So on January 28th, the behavior council met for the second time. That committee is made up of representation of parents and board members. So we do have parents that come K-12. And so that group has been engaging in conversations that explore the district's current behavior practices, and then also how and when interventions are used. And so there are a couple of things that I really wanted to bring back to the team here as information. So this last time we focused on school safety. Officer Pettit came. He is our SRO at Parkview Middle School. He talked with our parents about law enforcement and security and what his role looks like in our middle school. He talked about public safety education, what that informal counseling and mentorship looks like in the schools, and then also what that emergency management also looks like. We always conclude our meetings by talking about the next step. So what are we going to come back around to in April when we meet again? After our first meeting, I asked for feedback around some topics and what would be of high interest to the group to explore. So the things that came back the highest were social media and anxiety, the discipline process, school safety, which we did do this last time, and then some other things around vaping, substance use, and some of those other topics, which are super important, but not necessarily at the top. We spent some time talking about what we already do in our schools that are really proactive in each of our buildings. So just some reminders that doors in our buildings are locked at all times during the school day. Every entrance of our building has a locked vestibule, so once you get buzzed in, then there is also a locked entrance that you stand in until you're buzzed through the remainder of the way. And then we also have our Raptor identification system. So if you're ever in our buildings, you have to provide your driver's license. They run you through a system that has been extremely helpful if we ever have any concerns about somebody that shouldn't be on campus for one reason or another. That same Raptor identification system is also an app called Raptor on our phones. And we use that as an emergency management component. So anytime a drill is done here, or in the event that it's a live incident, that comes through on all of our administrative phones and then also in the buildings to staff. So if you have a drill coming through in this office, you'll hear buzzing everywhere, right? And it goes, right? So we are all on that network. We can take attendance on that app, and then we can also message. And so it is a great way to communicate in the event that we ever needed to really communicate something in a really tough situation. We also have door alarms at our building. So if a door is propped open, this is especially important at the high school level where kids tend to maybe prop a door open, right? They're just running out to the car and coming back in. So we just want to make sure that those alarms are going off. Again, that's a safety precaution all the way around. It's also a good reminder for our staff who also like to prop open our doors if we need to carry a bunch of things in, or if we have coaches or after school curriculars going on. We do have SRO officers at Parkview and MHS. Some of those things also include that we have those vape sensors in the bathrooms. We practice our drills on a monthly basis. So on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about that, but our students know what to do when something is announced in school. And so we do that so we create that muscle memory so kids are aware of where they need to go and how they need to react. Some of the things also that we've done as a district just to continually be proactive in our safety measures is that we have pick-up and go boxes that are prepared here at the district office. In the event that we ever had to evacuate a building, maybe it's for a gas leak or a small fire or something like that, we have everything that we need from internet connections to tags to vests to wear so that we can get up and move wherever we need to go and be able to set up efficiently. We want to make sure that the most important thing we're going to do is reunite our students with their parents. And so we have everything, fingers crossed, that we would need to take along. Recently, back in September, we talked about purchasing a new camera system called Verkada. And so right now, if you're in buildings, you'll see people doing wiring and some work in the ceilings, just making sure that we are getting where we need to be fully implemented. We have, again, proactively, we have a lot of staffing for student services. We talked about just that really beneficial component of having a full-time elementary counselor and a full-time school psych in every one of our elementary buildings. And then also that similar higher ratio model actually with the middle school and the high school, given the different populations of students and numbers. If you're in our buildings or if you're walking around, you'll see that we have all of our rooms are numbered on the outside. So in the event that we ever needed to have somebody accessing our buildings, whether that be a fire or police or whoever that might be, they can take a look at that room number outside and know who is on the inside. And then we also have digital maps that are part of that safety plan also. I'll talk a little bit about the anonymous reporting tool that we have as a district. And then again, just a small amount tonight on how we train and complete professional development on behavior threat assessments. So this was a part of the topic that this was all of it. It was an hour and a half, 2 hours of time, so I'm giving you a really condensed version. So just going into that emergency plan that we have, one of the parents on the committee had asked, well, what if you're a sub in a building? Do subs know what to do if we had to do this? And one of the other parents who are on the committee says, I do sub in the district. And she said, the kids know. Like if a drill comes on, the kids know exactly what to do. And so she said, even if I'm not familiar with all of the ins and outs of the buildings, I don't have to because the kids are going to direct me and tell me where I should go, what, you know, like she said, you never have to worry about that. So just to kind of give you a really quick glance at what we practice and drill on in the schools. So we have a hold, which we would be using if we had like a medical alert. We needed to clear the hallways. We would still be doing business as usual, but we do have the doors closed and locked. They're always in a locked position regardless. We have secure. If you are a parent at section, you sometimes might get notes home about various farmers in our community shooting at, you know, birds or wildlife or whatever. So a lot of times that will end us up in a secure situation where we just need kids to get inside, but we can continue to do business as usual. In the event that we had a lockdown, that would be an active situation for a school threat. Our students, staff know what they need to be doing during that time. If we needed to evacuate for any particular situation, again, a fire, a gas leak, Clarendon a while back had a pipe burst in the kitchen, and so we needed to evacuate at that time. Teachers were able to use that Raptor app on their phone to take attendance and message back and forth so we could get information relayed in a timely manner. And then also that shelter, we learn a lot when we have to use our drills. So if any of you remember when the tornado came through during Grandparent Lunch Week 2 years ago, we learned from that in our shelters that we didn't have things for like our diabetic students who were being in, you know, the hold areas. Like we needed to make sure that we had fruit snacks or something to keep kids stable. And so anytime we have to do a procedure or a drill in real life, I think we take what we need to take from it and learn and do better the next time. Part of our committee also reviews school board policy and practices. So policy 8410 is our crisis intervention policy. It has a very defined process to follow, and that is where we work through any type of threat assessments we would need to do during the school day. Policy 8420 talks about school safety. So that is that comprehensive safety plan that Tom and Andy usually bring in you bring it to the board to be voted on. And then also where our drills are housed as far as when and how often we have to do them. 8462 is looking at threats of violence. So obviously the school board strictly prohibits any threats of violence in or targeted at schools. We talk about the fact that it has to be reported, but then also that mandated reporting role falls on all district employees. So whether you are working in the kitchen, if you are a building administrator, if you are a teacher, everybody shares that responsibility of making sure that we are reporting. Okay, so we also talked as a committee, just what does a threat look like, and how does that, what is that spectrum from like a very flippant comment to a very serious threat? And so talked about social media posts and how that comes into the school environment. We talked about notes, we talked about comments being overheard by a peer, by a teacher. We talked about how sometimes it really feels like somebody just said something that was joking, but we don't take anything as a joke, right? Like we have to explore every comment, every concern as if it was real. And so that's part of the process. We also talked about English class. Oftentimes we'll get threats out of an English class, or not even necessarily sometimes a threat, but like just maybe a story that is just kind of questionable, or like where is it going with intent? And then also anonymous tips. And so talked about the importance of speak up, speak out, which I will talk about in just a minute.
notice there's not much of a crowd left. So are we really excited for this? So what happens when a threat is received? So a school team convenes. It's always led by a building administrator, and that's in consult with district office and then our SRO. So we always are making sure our information is gathered. We talked about just how much stuff we look at. Like, what does the internet history look like? What is the witnesses and the people around the area hearing? We're talking to parents, we're talking to teachers, and we're coming back together to meet and analyze that information. I think the biggest thing to understand when we're doing a threat assessment is that it is a team of people. So it's not just one person's perspective. You have all of the right people in the room to really be talking about how they know the student in multiple different areas and aspects of their life with us as a student. And then we also talk about what is that level of concern. So we have the comment, we've done the investigation, where are we now? And that brings us into the level of risk. So again, we're talking from a low level to no concern being addressed through using existing support structures, having some behaviors that are exhibited but indicate a need for intervention. That high level of concern where we are concerned that there's an indication of an intent to harm, an escalation of a concern that they might have the capacity to carry out the plan. Is it credible? Is it not credible? Those are all the conversations we're having. And then, of course, if we were ever to have an imminent concern, moving right into that, whatever action that would be to prevent violence from occurring in our schools. And again, that's why all of those proactive measures I talked about at the beginning of the presentation are really important, because it prevents us, hopefully, from ever getting to a situation where we have an imminent concern. So the Speak Up, Speak Out dashboard, it's actually an anonymous reporting tool. I know the board has heard me talk about it a few times, but I think it's really good for our community at large to hear about it too. It was introduced in December of 2019. We get about an average of 50 tips per year. So since we started it, we've had 307 tips to date. Those really are very different from whether it's a social media post that's concerning, to bullying, there's drugs, vaping, all of those types of things fall under that umbrella. It is anonymous, so students can put in a concern about another student if they have some concerns that maybe a student is harming themselves or they're considering like a suicidal ideation type situation. They can put in that concern, and we're able to connect it to the right people in the schools. It's also monitored 24/7. So if we're really concerned about a student, if a parent or a child outside of school is really concerned about a student, they will dispatch a police officer to that house when the tip comes through. So it is it's just really, I feel like a great blanket to help no matter what, even if we're not in session, that we have somebody who's going to be responding. And then as soon as a tip is made, there's a case number assigned, and then that case is monitored until it is closed. So, and they're very good. The Department of Justice oversees this app, and they're very good about connecting back with us until those events are closed out and they have been investigated thoroughly. The other thing about Speak Up, Speak Out is that people can upload images from social media. So if there's a concern posted on Snapchat or Instagram or Be Real or whatever the new social media pieces that are out there right now, that can be uploaded right up into that app and provide either the DOJ, our police department, or our administration access to what that might look like. The next part is just talking about Care Solace. So again, information for the community at large. Care Solace is a mental health navigator tool. It is a means to an end when you're trying to get through the mental health network of trying to find a provider, getting in with somebody, finding out if they're going to accept your insurance, all of those different pieces. Tom, can you go to the next one? So again, Care Solace is the navigation tool that can help us get families or staff in touch with the right lead person if they want specific help with an alcohol or drug issue, if they want support with like anxiety or depression. So when we started this in 23-24, we had a total cases of 105 cases. So we had 105 students that were then able to get some type of support or direction as a family. So the total communication is the amount of emails, phone messages, back and forth that have gone on for those 105 cases. So if you think about, even though we have what I would consider to be a pretty comprehensive student services program, personnel, that's still 5,624 messages that our staff didn't have to do. So that's what it's designed to do on behalf of our families. And then out of those 105 referrals, we had 49 appointments that year. The trend is staying pretty even. So in 24-25, we had 114. Again, you see the communications, and then we had 51 appointments. We've had 38 referrals so far this year, and then we've had that many communications and 13 appointments year to date.
Means your team's doing a great job.
So go to the next one, Tom. Our future council topics include social media and anxiety. We're going to talk about mental health, and then we're going to talk about the disciplinary process. So that is what we're hoping to get through on our last meeting, which is April 7th. It's a great group of parents. I really enjoy, you never really know what it's going to be like right when you first get your council together, but it's been a really great group of people. Super great discussion, lots of good conversation. So,
any questions or comments? I just want to say I'm so glad you brought this up, because when you have a knucklehead kid that makes a silly threat, like, at least the community knows like how much is involved. That's what we hear is, why are you having school the next day? And it's because the police are involved and it's investigated thoroughly. And I've never kept my kids out of school for this stuff because I know it's been thoroughly gone through. So, yep. Thank you.
And then the last piece. I think I have one more thing, Dale. So this is, actually it's a 66.03 contract. So we have a contractual agreement with the school district of Elmbrook. We work with Elmbrook. They serve as our fiscal agent and provide special education services for students with low incident disabilities. So for us, Mukwonago Area School District participates in this agreement for our students who have hearing and audiology services. So I will bring that forward as an action item next week, Monday, so we can get that contract signed and returned to Elmbrook for the following school year.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
That's a 2-year contract for that one? Just one every year?
It's actually a 1 year. They do a 2-year contract with who they hire, but we sign 1 year at a time.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. Up next, action items, hires, retirements, and resignations.
All right, so we have a recommendation to hire Christine Perkins as our college and career readiness coordinator. Christine is currently a teacher at Parkview Middle School. If this is approved, we would bring Christine to the board meeting on the 16th to do an introduction and give you the whole biography of Christine. And then we did have some notices of retirement. Carrie Gora, a second grade teacher at Clarendon. Sue Haas, a kindergarten teacher at Big Bend. Jeannie Olin, a first grade teacher at Prairie View. And Jenny Summers, a special education teacher at Parkview Middle School.
Make a motion to approve the hire and retirements.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the hires and retirements. Any questions or comments?
I just have one quick question. As we move Ms. Perkins up into an administrative role, what happens to her classes?
So we will not fully transition her into the role until her vacancy is filled. So she will remain in her classroom teaching position until we can ensure that the vacancy is filled. We're not going to disrupt students and their learning until we have that position filled.
Sounds good. My kids love Mrs. Perkins.
Yep, most kids do.
Any other questions or comments? I have a question. When somebody puts in their resignation or retires, what is the process that you go through with them?
So we, I explain to them that I'm going to take their retirement or their resignation notice to the board. My lovely assistant, Sarah Scheel, once the board has accepted, so once you then make the motion to accept that, Sarah sends them a notice saying that your resignation or retirement has been accepted, explains any process of like returning materials, date of that taking place, and then offers them an exit interview. Staff are afforded that in person, so staff can request to do that with me in person, or they can fill out a Google form, which is done electronically.
Every single employee.
Every single employee.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
I actually have a follow-up on that. What's more common, the in-person or the Google form?
The Google form is much more common.
Any other questions, comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the hires and retirements. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you. And we don't have any executive session, so looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Crosby, roll call, please.
Jason,
Yes.
Jake,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Marilyn,
Yes.
Bert's, you still there?
He
All right.
gonna have shitty
Gooch,
internet.
Mike.